coming up just after 3:30.
Aldrin Sampear, muhashi wa ntokoto na vutshila, wena masusa xivundza mai, rito eka lava ri pfumalaka, rito leri hangalakeke na misava hinkwayo, ri haxa mbewu ya vutlhari. Xana i mani a nga ku miyetaka ke? I mani a nga miyetaka mpfumawulo wa rito ra ku ke? 326 hi tshama hi ri etindleve eka SAFM, hikuva u hi phamela swakudya swa miehleketo hi dya yi tlhela hi xipa. Ndzi ri halala Aldrin Sampear, halala wena la selekiweke eswitikweni swa vutlhari, a katingiwa etimbiteni ta vutivi, a swekiwa hi gala Zahara vutshila. Loko ri mina ntombi ya mutonga n'waxambula makutlo wa madyafu la ri la tsundzuka n'wana hi ku heta, ndzi ku hluvulela xihuku, ndzi ri kula u ringana na ndlopfu. Halala Aldrin Sampear, halala.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
It is 11 minutes after 3 o'clock. Good afternoon and welcome to Beyond the Headline with me, Aldrin Sampear. Thank you so much for choosing us this afternoon. So as we start off the show, or just before we went on to do the throw forward with Bridget, we got the news from the ANC that Mavuso Msimanga has actually now withdrawn his resignation letter. We've tried to reach out to him. Unfortunately, we are struggling to get a hold of him, but we will be speaking to the ANC that says that after meeting that was held between Mavuso Msimanga as well as the Secretary General of the ANC, facilitated by the Veterans League of the ANC, where he was the Deputy President, is that they have decided that he will withdraw his resignation letter. And I see that Times Life is running with an article where he is quoted as saying that, yes, it is correct, I've withdrawn the resignation. So we'll be speaking to the spokesperson of the ANC, who will be joining us at around 20 to 4. What's your take on this? Mavuso Msimanga withdrawing his resignation from the ANC, and after what he had called a shameful record of dealing with issues relating to corruption, and also remember all of the other things that he had pointed out, and saying that in his resignation letter that the ANC, what they used to decry, has now become part of their DNA, which is corruption. Corruption has now become part of the ANC's DNA. He has now withdrawn his resignation letter. We'll be speaking to the ANC spokesperson about this decision. But as he comes back as an ANC member, he will not be coming back as the Deputy President of the ANC Youth League. As the ANC Veterans League. So we'll be having that conversation a bit later on. Also on the show this afternoon, one of the stories that we're looking into is the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation releasing its South African Reconciliation Barometer survey, which showed that the majority of South Africans agree that national leaders are not concerned about what happens to ordinary people. However, though, they have expressed confidence in the SABC. And I have to say that we truly appreciate that. So we'll be speaking to Kate Lefko Everett, who's a senior project leader at SA Reconciliation Barometer at the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. Also on the show this afternoon at around 4:10, we will be speaking to Dr. Mike Masiapato, who is the Commissioner for the South Africa's Border Management Authority, following the meeting that they've had with their Zimbabwean counterparts. Remember that Zimbabwe also now is set to establish a border management authority. They have a bill currently, and South Africa was contributing to that. So that conversation will come up at around 4:10. Also on the show this afternoon at around 4:20. Remember last time, early in the week, we spoke to Sizwe Pamla, who's the spokesperson for the Premier of Gauteng, and this is following the report by the Public Service Commission that Gauteng was one of the culprits when it comes to failure to pay service providers within 30 days. Sizwe Pamla rejected the report itself and said that the report was actually wrong. So we will be speaking to the commissioner at the Public Service Commission, Anele Qoya, because we said we'll grant them an opportunity to respond to what Sizwe Pamla had raised during that interview. So that conversation is coming up at 20 past 4. And then at 5 o'clock in the interview, our focus is going to be on what a Gold One mine has called a trend. And they say that it is a trend that you find mine workers going underground in a form of protest or as a form of protest. And he also spoke when he had an interview with the Sakina Komendo that I think the Mineral Council as well has highlighted this as a concern. We know of 2 mines where this has happened, but what measures should be put in place to avoid this from happening, and sometimes even some of the mine workers being held against their will. So that conversation is coming up after 5 o'clock. That is the interview. For now, we're taking your voice notes on 0614104107. You can drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086 000 2032.
The only talk radio afternoon drive show that makes sense. Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear, right here on SAFM.
Let's start off with Kate Lefko Everett, who is a senior project leader at the South African Reconciliation Barometer at the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation, which earlier on today released results that 81% of the South Africans agree that the national leaders are not concerned about what happens to ordinary people, and 79% believe that leadership cannot be trusted to do the right thing. This is worrying, of course, considering the fact that we are heading into a highly anticipated 2024 general elections, which is just around the corner. So Kate now joining us on the line. Kate, good afternoon, and thank you so much for making time for us.
Hi, Aldrin. Thanks so much for having me. I look forward to sharing the results with you.
Thank you so much. So overall, though, when we look at the results, do they paint a better picture compared to some of the research that you've done before, or do we see that there is a dwindling confidence in institutions of confidence, but as well as the leadership?
Yeah, we have been doing this report at the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation for 20 years now. So we have a really nice, rich set of data on a unique period in South African history. And as we highlighted at the launch event this morning in Cape Town, there are areas where we are optimistic and we find there to be high reconciliation and good progress, but there are also, as you mentioned, some challenging issues as well. One of those is the very low trust in leadership, and that's quite a dramatic change from some of the results we would have seen in the earlier rounds of the survey. And as you mentioned, we have also seen really a drop in confidence in many public institutions in the last decade or so.
Is your research able to pinpoint what has led to this lack of confidence when assessing, especially when it comes to, let's start off, for instance, with the public institutions, and then after that we'll deal with the leaders?
So our survey is a nationally representative survey. It's conducted all throughout the country. There was 2006 respondents this year. It is mostly close-ended questions, so we don't probe the motivation behind the responses, but we can see, and this is consistent across other public opinion surveys in South Africa as well, that there has been this decline since about 2013, 2014 in confidence in many institutions, including national government, including parliament, etc. And another concern that came out very strongly was that people are very worried about the extent of corruption. There's a strong finding that corrupt officials act with impunity, they get away with it, and that there's no political will to solve issues of corruption. So we do think there's likely a relationship between those two findings.
Yeah, and speaking about the leaders and the survey, they're asking, do you agree, uncertain, disagree, DK or REF? This is now in relation to can leaders be trusted. In 2003, 18% said they agree. Leaders cannot be trusted, rather. In 2003, 18% said they agree. That number shot up to 79% in 2023.
It's a dramatic change, it is. But we also feel South Africa is not alone in this situation. Many other countries are also experiencing challenges with maintaining trust in leadership, but it is a very dramatic finding and kind of one of the most pronounced changes that we've seen over this 20-year lifespan of the survey project.
does this also then perhaps give us, I don't know, an inclination of what could be behind the lack of enthusiasm when it comes to the elections and participation of the electorate? Does it give us that insight, perhaps?
So what we found, we do ask about intention to vote in the 2024 elections. It's obviously a very interesting and relevant point to discuss as we go into the election season. And there was quite a high interest. We had 70% of South Africans saying they're interested in participating in elections. That's obviously higher than the turnout we've seen at the last polls. Of course, you can't say that that directly translates into what happens on the day, and there's many reasons people might not turn out to vote, but we did find it encouraging that people are interested in participating. But the background is that there is a lot of frustration, as you said, with institutions, with service delivery, corruption, etc.
And confidence in institutions, the SABC right there at the top. So, yeah, well done.
Yes, the SABC.
Well done to our staff members here at the SABC management that are doing some incredible work behind the scenes. But this is the public broadcaster that we're speaking about here. And sometimes the public broadcaster tends to have a negative a brand, or people perceive it in a very negative light because of the association of it is a public broadcaster and affiliated to government, and therefore it means affiliated to the ANC. And for me, seeing these figures, very, very interesting, 57%, which is the highest of all of the institutions that you've looked at.
And we thank you for your service. I'm certainly a regular listener.
Thank you.
I think we know that there are also challenges with the SABC and other institutions, but yes, it did come out as performing well in terms of public opinion, and I think we will continue to rely on your service as we go into election season.
I appreciate that, Kate. Just one last one, the inclusion of LGBT in your survey?
Yes, we actually did for the first time look at questions around LGBT, and in general we found that there was high approval or support for the idea that the LGBT community should have the same human and civic rights as everyone else in the country. Of course, we know that's guaranteed in the Constitution already, but it was good to reaffirm that there was that support and approval. The findings were a little bit more moderate when it came to kind of acceptance of relationships within families and parenting, etc. So we have highlighted that as a place where we hope to see improvement again in the future as well.
Thank you so much for your time. Kate Lefko-Everett, Senior Project Leader at the South African Reconciliation Barometer at the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. 0614-104-107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
A small working group of midwives and a cleric have been requested to travel out to South Africa to work at a clinic and assess its future viability. Faced with a strained water supply, no electricity, and a troublesome neighboring farmer, will Poplar be able to find solutions to a myriad of problems? Channel your best drama with Call the Midwife Christmas Special. Starts Wednesday, 20 December at 9 p.m. on S3.
There is a piece of paradise for everyone in South Africa. You can get lost in the clear night sky of the desert, hike up to majestic mountains and waterfalls, explore the fun and vibey outdoor events and festivities, feast on perfect seafood on a tranquil coast, or just cruise on a game drive witnessing the Big Five. Whatever your taste, opportunities await. SA Tourism, inspiring new ways.
VfL Wolfsburg plan to amalgamate their strategy with home ground advantage to secure maximum points against Bayern München. However, the dominating outfit of German football, the Bavarians, refuse to shake and break. Will the Wolves howl in a fascinating manner, or will the Bavarians display their winning mentality? This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Be part of the spectacular action. VfL Wolfsburg versus Bayern München on Wednesday, 20 December at 9:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you on SABC Sport.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
It is 24 minutes after 3 o'clock. Remember that we're also streaming live on Facebook as well as YouTube. So you can also go onto our chat box over there and leave some of your comments, and we'll be reading them on air and share it with the rest of our listeners. Let's now speak to Dr. John Streamlau, Honorary Professor of International Relations at Wits University. So the House of Representatives have voted to formalize an impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. On the other hand, President Biden has questioned the priorities of the House Republicans in pursuing an inquiry against him and his family, saying instead of doing anything to help make Americans' lives better, they are focused on attacking me with lies. The impeachment process is centered around the business dealings of the Biden family members. We understand that while the investigation has raised ethical questions, no evidence has emerged that Biden acted corruptly. This is now President Biden that has acted corruptly. Dr. John Streamlau now joining us on the line. Dr. Streamlau, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. Is it a given that the Republicans were going to push ahead with this, considering that they were going into the elections?
It is all about politics, and the Democrats are right to say this is a fishing expedition because there really have been no established facts of the impeachment on which it would be based. However, the Republicans are now sort of backpedaling and saying that it's a procedural issue so they can get subpoena powers, so that once they have tabled an impeachment resolution, then they can go ahead and proceed with the investigation. But God knows what they're going to turn up.
Mm-hmm. But would that be with the intention of calling President Joe Biden to appear before the committee that is going to be dealing with the investigation?
Well, against this backdrop, you've got to remember that Donald Trump is leading the Republican field by a huge margin, and everybody is trying on the Republican side to position themselves relative to the likelihood that not only will he be the candidate, but he could win. Now Trump faces 91 indictments, and Trump is also advocating and this is relevant to South Africa because America is becoming a more diverse country, but the Republicans represent the heartland of the Make America Great Again crowd, which is really, as the Speaker Mike Johnson exemplifies, fundamentally a Christian white domination that prevailed in the U.S. until the 21st century, and now it is becoming more like South Africa, but because it had a majority that was dominant, unlike South Africa where it was a racial minority that was dominant, South Africa has put this devil to bed, but it's still raising concerns in America. That's what the fight is all about. It's the fight between, Johnson says that America is a republic, not a democracy. That's because it's based on states' rights, not human rights as the Constitution in this country is.
Sure, but is the intention to have Joe Biden appear before the committee?
No, he would refuse, just like Trump did. And
so what's the purpose then of the subpoena power?
Well, it's politics, as I said, and it's to make noise and to try to establish a moral equivalence. But and Biden has been saddled with a son who's been very problematic. His older brother died, and his mother and sister died in a car accident years and years ago. He's been on drugs. He's had financial dicey dealings. But what the Republicans are saying is that he refused the subpoena. I saw the clipping of the press conference that he gave. He said, I will do it in public, but I'm not going to do it behind closed doors because the Republicans would leak to their advantage politically. Now, I don't know where the truth lies on this. He's obviously got problems, and those problems may or may not contaminate the Biden presidency, but at the moment, there has been just the accusations, not any kind of evidence.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. That is Dr. John Streamlaw, who's an honorary professor of international relations at the Wits University. And of course, Hunter Biden, during that press briefing, saying that the Republicans do not want an open process where Americans can see their tactics, expose their baseless inquiry, or hear what I have to say. But Biden, of course, Hunter Biden, that is still facing 2 federal indictments, one on a gun and the other one on tax charges. 0614-104-107. You can drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Our studio line is 086 000 2032.
Thanks, Aldrin. With the headlines, Kemudupi Makhalemele. The founding president of the Areta Party, Carl Niehaus, has urged all left-wing political parties to join the EFF ahead of the elections next year. President Cyril Ramaphosa says the high crime rate continues to undermine the country's economy as it negatively affects citizens and businesses. And the family of the late Bulelwa Zahara Mkutukana have shared their last moments with the songstress at a memorial service at the Rhema Bible Church in Joburg. Details of these and other stories coming up 4 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
And let's get a traffic update with Rob Byrne. A lot of people ending their work day today for the year 2023, Rob, and I guess starting off with their holiday travel.
Yeah, a lot of people going down to Durban. I'll touch on that in just a moment. That is a very busy route today. Just want to bring you up to date and up to speed with what's happening through Midrand. There's a couple of backlogs to work through today. Buccleuch up to New Road is slow on your way to Pretoria. And then from Samrand Road, there's a breakdown up at Old Joburg Road. So you've got 2 queues to work through. Also, just a heads up, if you're going into Pretoria, you're going to be asked to queue on the top of the N14 today, just as you sort of come up to the R101 and go into the city centre. That's a queue that's almost back as far as the Eupheus Road. Now, talking about Durban bound, we've seen some moderately busy numbers, certainly not extreme by any stretch of the imagination, but an N3 route from Joburg to Durban that's probably carrying 4 or 5 times more traffic than it would do on a Thursday. So it gives you an indication that we're on the move. And a lot of that traffic currently being caught around Pietermaritzburg. So there's a really big queue first up just on the Pietermaritzburg bypass. You hit the lane drop section. That's just pure volume. And then from sort of Allan Payton, it gets really heavy all the way down to a breakdown just before you get to Linfield Park. So the run down through out of Pietermaritzburg and Ashburton, very heavy. That's Durban bound. And then if you're going into Pietermaritzburg, there's been a crash on the N3 westbound between Ashburton and Market Road. So that's a heavy queue as well. So both sides really heavily jammed up. And then if you're in Durban today, there's a truck fire incident on the N2 south at Spaghetti Junction. That traffic very heavy coming from Inanda Road. There's also a breakdown on the N2 before Umhlanga. So that's heavy from Komashi. And a crash around Kongela on the Southern Freeway heading out of Durban. That's quite a backlog as you leave the CBD. Cape Town side today, we've been monitoring traffic flows out on the N2 through Somerset West. It's not been too bad. Solari's passing Crabo, all flowing nicely. There is some sand clearance today, plus a diesel spillage incident on Baden-Powell. So if you're moving between Musenberg and Stellenbosch, there's some slow-go traffic along the coastal route. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good afternoon. We kick things off with TX Galaxy. They're preparing for the Carling knockout final against Stellenbosch FC this weekend. And one player who will be watching from the VIP box but having played a big role in the preparation will be the injured veteran striker Bernard Parker. Ironically, when Galaxy won their maiden trophy in 2019, beating Kaizer Chiefs in the Nedbank Cup final at the same venue, Moses Mabhida, Parker was on the other side. The School of Excellent Product believes that as Galaxy, they have an edge going into this final. Let's listen now to veteran Bernard Parker.
I know that we are going to take this final. The reason why I know that we're going to take this final, we got the mental edge. We got the the great workmanship amongst each other, and we've got such a massive sense of motivation in our camp. So it's just for us on the day to apply ourselves to the right mental levels on the day. And if we do that, I'm sure we will come out champions.
Now, rugby, where the South African teams will be targeting another strong weekend of action in round 2 of the Champions Cup and the EPCR Challenge Cup after starting their respective competitions with an impressive win record of 4 out of 5 last week. Both the Champions Cup teams will be in action. That's tomorrow. We've also got the Stormers hosting the defending champions, Stade Rochelle. That will be on Saturday, who are in the hunt for their third successive title in Cape Town, while the Vodacom Bulls will go up against Lyon in France. The Lions will take on the Newcastle Falcons in Johannesburg on Saturday in the EPCR Challenge Cup, while the Cheetahs, they welcome the Sharks to Bloemfontein on Sunday for a mouth-watering local derby. In the meantime, the assistant Rito Shlongwane says the Stormers won't need to use last week's Champions Cup loss as extra motivation when they face La Rochelle on Saturday. The Stormers' failure to secure a lock point against Leicester Tigers has put the Cape Townians under the spotlight to topple the title holders this week in their first match at Cape Town Stadium. As back-to-back SA Shield winners in the United Rugby Championships, John Dobson Chargers are up against the two-time European champions who boast a wealth of talent, including former Stormers pieces Dylan Lates and Raymond Ruler. On to some other news. This time it's cricket. Australian all-rounder Cameron Green has revealed he has chronic kidney disease. The 24-year-old was diagnosed with the condition at birth, with doctors telling his parents there was chance he may not live beyond the age of 12. Green has since gone on to play in all 3 formats for Australia and was in the squad for their recent World Cup win. Green has said his kidney function is currently about 60%, which puts him at stage 2, with stage 5 being the most severe. And finally, golf. The Live Golf chief executive, Greg Norman, says that John Rahm's move to the Saudi-backed circuit will create a domino effect of more high-profile players making the lucrative jump. And of course, there's been a lot of, champions such as Rahm. He was the one that joined last week, as well as Cameron Smith, in a deal worth hundreds of millions of US dollars. It was a huge coup for the Upstart Tour. Liv already recruited major winners Brooks Koepka, Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, and Rahm, arguably the biggest name yet to leave the PGA Tour. Spain's Rahm had previously ruled out going to Liv when it held its inaugural season in 2022 and triggered a bit of a civil war in golf. We'll keep a close eye on these and other stories on Beyond the Headlines. More sport headlines for you. Top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation. The award-winning SAFM playwriting competition is back.
SAFM, which many of you would know right now, we're launching the popular drama playwriting competition. The aim is to promote literacy and also ignite love for sharing South African stories.
Well, everything has gone up. The price of petrol. Hey, Wena, are you saying that this phone uses petrol?
Our writers are being invited to explore the medium of sound and really go into the theatre of the mind.
People see the pictures in their own color, in their own images, in their own faces.
For a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes, visit safm.co.za. SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365, Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. #SAFMBTH.
0614-104-107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Our studio line is 086 2032. Let's go into the story next. We speak to Mahleng Mutsiri, who is the spokesperson for the ANC. So ANC veteran, well, before we used to call him former ANC veteran, but it's now ANC veteran. ANC veteran Mavuso Msimanga has withdrawn his resignation from the party after meeting with the party's Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula. According to the ANC, Mbalula regrets that he made comments that impunged the integrity of Msimang after he suggested that Msimang was vulnerable to taking a bribe from a newly established political formation Change Starts Now that was recently launched by Roger Jardine. Mahleng now joining us on the line. Mahleng, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. How was this meeting initiated?
Well, it was initiated, good afternoon, Aldrin, and good afternoon to listeners. It was initiated at the instance of both the leadership of the national officials of ANC and the ANC Veterans League.
Okay, what was the purpose of the ANC? You say the ANC's national leaders. Does this include the president as well?
Of course, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And what was the intention?
Well, I suppose the intention was really to reflect on Comrade Mavuso's resignation. He's an elder in our movement and is a veteran with over 60 years of service, a highly decorated member of the ANC in terms of his own credentials, one of the surviving members of what was known as the MK Lutuli detachment. It was important to reflect on the issues he said in the letter.
Yeah. And I'm also asking this, whether the president also asked for this meeting to be initiated, because initially when the president was asked about the resignation, he did say that it was regrettable that Mavuso Msimanga had resigned, but he accepted it and also said that, some people leave and the ANC is still growing. So it almost seemed as though it was a done deal. So what led to this change of heart to try and sway him to join or to rescind his resignation letter?
No, well, we certainly can't individualize this to the president, not at all. In fact, I think veterans should be credited for speaking to one of their own in the best way possible and engaging with one of their own and listening to him carefully. And, of course, the issues raised are the issues that veterans have been raising and continue to raise. They're not the only ones who are doing so within the organization. I think the ANC has a resolution that takes us on a path of renewal. So it is really a collective effort. And there's been an attempt to present this thing as if it's the veterans against the mother body. I really do want to debunk that myth.
Okay. So then during this meeting, then what did Mavuso Msimanga say? What was his explanation about his resignation?
Well, it's all there in the statement, Aldrin. I mean, he reiterated concerns around the slow pace with which matters, especially matters of discipline, are being attended to. I would not go into the substance of the discussions. I mean, those are internal discussions of the party, like any other self-respecting party. We don't ventilate the detail of that conversation, but the spirit, I can indicate that the spirit has been collegial, and the spirit has been the one of saying, we hear you, but be part of the solution. And, of course, he wants to be part of the solution, hence rescinding his resignation.
Was it as based on the request from the ANC that he rescinded the resignation? Was there a plea from the ANC?
Well, there was a plea from the veterans, and the ANC, of course, supported the veterans because, as I say, I mean, veterans are inextricably linked to the ANC. Again, I want to emphasize this point because, the narrative out there is veterans against the ANC, and there isn't really such a thing. It's different perspectives and different approaches to how we deal with the challenges of our time.
And considering the meeting that took place, the statement that was issued by the Secretary General of the party, and then the Secretary General of the party saying that I didn't say that he accepted a bribe, and Mavuso Msimanga had said that he must apologize immediately or retract the statement as well. Otherwise, there's a possibility of even going to court. So that is not happening anymore.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm aware, that is not happening. I think, fences have been mended, and we must applaud both Comrade Mavuso and Comrade Fikile for coming to that kind of a conclusion. among, between the two of them as part of that conversation for reaching out to one another, explaining themselves to each other as part of that collective. So I doubt that something of the kind will happen. The most important thing for us, the takeaway, is that one of our long-standing veterans is reaffirming his commitment to continue, raising his issues internally and in the way that we encourage people to do so in the ANC.
Was there any explanation from his end around reports linking him to Change Starts Now?
Well, I'm not aware that he is linked to Change Starts Now. I'm not aware that anyone has even suggested something to that effect except what you read about on X or wherever else.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no such a narrative from within the ANC, because if there was such a narrative...
Well, it's your Secretary General that started it as well.
Well, the Secretary General did not say so. I was there at the meeting where he spoke.
Mm-hmm.
It did not suggest that Comrade Mavuso Msimang is part of the Change Starts Now movement. He may have mentioned his name in the same sentence as he was talking about Roger Jardine and what he has walked away to go and do. But if you listen to that clip carefully, there is nowhere where the Secretary General says directly that Mavuso Msimang is part of the Change Starts Now movement. It may just be a manner of speak, but there is absolutely nothing that suggested that. I listened to it several times, as much as I was part of that gathering.
Yeah. Okay. And then the final one is, he speaks about corruption being part of the ANC's DNA, and I don't know how the ANC is going to deal with that particular element. But the resignation letter as well, he says that he didn't leak the resignation letter. I don't know if the ANC has been able to establish who leaked the resignation letter. But with this that has happened now, do you think that it has brought the ANC into disrepute? Is this a honourable member of the party? Do you think that he's still honourable, considering the interviews that he also did after and speaking out against the ANC?
Well, to your last point, Aldrin, I'll say it's water under the bridge. And I think that at a moment when people are challenged or are vexed by a particular development, him responding also to what he perceived to be the utterances of the SG, or what he called the utterances of the SG, it is only human that people would respond in the way that they would respond. About the matter of corruption being in the DNA of the ANC, certainly our perspective that corruption is not in the DNA of the ANC. We may be having members that are implicated and have been found to be corrupt. We have a challenge to root them out and weed them out of the movement in a way that is done in accordance with the policies and the constitution of the ANC and that of the country, following the rule of law and the type of constitutionalism that we have. I don't think that Baba Mavuso is in disrepute or is going to be perceived differently. I think that his moral standing is highly respected, both within the organization as well as in society.
And then the ANC also saying in that statement that this means that those implicated in the Zondo Commission will not be included in our list if their names have not been cleared by the ANC's Integrity Commission. Does this mean that the Integrity Commission will determine whether the persons can stand or not stand, irrespective of what is actually in the Commission of Inquiry's report?
Well, that is not a new position, Aldrin. I mean, this is something that has always been there. So you have to look at the intersection of the work of the Integrity Commission together with the work of the Electoral Committee. The Electoral Committee, when vetting candidates, which is a process that is currently underway, has to look carefully at the reports of the Integrity Commission. It's there, it's spelled out in the candidate selection guidelines. So it's totally not a new issue. The Electoral Committee also has to, take counsel and guidance from the disciplinary committee reports and come to a conclusion about whether somebody is worthy to be one of our public representatives. So this is the work that is currently underway, and we're quite comfortable that particular concern raised not just by Comrade Mavuso, but in this instance raised by Comrade Mavuso as well, is something that is being attended to.
But the ANC Veterans League's position is on the finding of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry's report, not necessarily what the Integrity Commission is saying. So I'm asking whether the Integrity Commission's findings would supersede that of the Commission of Inquiry's investigation.
Well, the ANC has got to follow its own terms of reference of the Integrity Commission. And the terms of reference of the Integrity Commission do not undermine in any way the Zondo Commission report, but takes into account also all manner of other investigations that have taken place in the public domain. I really wouldn't want to get into a discussion about which one supersedes the other, because the ANC operates on the basis of its own guidelines. Okay. For example, our step-aside policy. Yeah. There are very clear, caveats to that policy. Once you're charged by the courts, and then you step aside. Well, although we always encourage people to even consider stepping aside as and when they are accused, to allow the organization to proceed whilst they clear themselves in the courts of law.
Thank you so much. That is Mahleng Bengu Mutsire, who is the spokesperson for the ANC. 0614-104107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086 000 2032.
Think big on the Insider SA this Monday evening at 6 as content creator Mihlali Ndamase drops some pearls.
It's constantly about innovating yourself, upping your game.
Learn to spin with
T-Will Touch. I'm letting you come and spend a day and time with me. You already know I'm with the king of spins. Watch me do it.
And Vuyo Oyiya turns her duk into a work of art.
And look where we are today.
That's the Insider SA. This Monday at 6. Repeat Saturday at 1 p.m. and Sunday morning at 10:30 on S3.
Botswana qualified for the BNP Group Africa Cup Finals 2023 with an unbeaten record in the qualifiers and became winners of the Southern African Cup in May, while Malawi finished runners-up by winning 2 of their 4 games. Whereas Mozambique also qualified for the BNP Group Africa Cup Finals in a spectacular manner, pipping Eswatini and Mauritius on net run rate in the Southern African Cup. Witness the thrilling action from 11 to 19 December, live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Don't miss out on the SAFM Playwriting Competition. To enter, visit safm.co.za. From the menu icon, select Competitions. Click on the SAFM Drama Playwriting Competition. Read the T's and C's of the competition. Check out the competition's Q&A. Fill in the entry form by clicking the link provided. Email your script to drama@safm.co.za. For further information, email drama@safm.co.za. Entries close on the 22nd of January 2024. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Let's take your voice notes on 0614-104107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
Good afternoon, Aldrin Sampear and your team. You know, Aldrin, since Zuma's time, you know, I lost trust in ANC. And for that matter, I think everyone can see what ANC is. ANC is no longer the trustworthy party, you know, because whatever they are saying, it's always lies. Just imagine the old man. He only lied only 2 weeks ago, and then now he's turning back to ANC. But he was talking as if he will never go back to ANC. He has nothing to do with ANC. But I was thinking, why now? But because he was there all the time when the corruption was going on. Whatever he was saying or trying to stop what they were doing corrupt, but he never stopped anything. But he said he's leaving, now he's coming back. That means ANC is not a party to trust, and I'll never vote for them. Thank you, Aldrin Sampear. My name is Tabo here in Cape Town.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. You know, if really Mavuso is back to ANC, it is shocking. And he denied himself a voice to have a say when something wrong is happening to the organization. because that it will take his dignity away from himself. He was not supposed to go back, because it sounds like he didn't think well before he take a final decision. And he will be there and act like a puppet, because he will no longer sing anything in that organization. They will do as they wish in his presence, and nothing he will do. Mkazi, Ndambi Village, thanks.
Hi, Aldrin. It's Lazarus in Lesotho. If Dr. Mafuso Mzimang has drawn his resignation letter to the ANC, I don't see anything wrong if they sat down and they did listen to him. Some of the issues he did raise, I think it's what life is all about. Let's see what will happen thereafter if they have agreed to come to the negotiating tables, and they will let him raise the issues that he's very much concerned of. Thank you.
#SAFMBTH.
It is 5 minutes now before 4 o'clock rather. We speak to Siphumelele Zondi, lecturer at the DUT and also presenter of Network on the SABC News channel 404. There's a growing trend of people turning to technology to resurrect their deceased loved ones in China. According to several reports, the process of digitally resurrecting the dead involves collecting vast amounts of data about the deceased individual, including photos, videos, voice recordings and written materials. This data is then fed into an artificial intelligence system that uses deep learning algorithms to analyze and understand the person's unique characteristics, mannerisms, as well as speech patterns. But would you embrace a digital resurrection of a loved one who has passed on? Siphumelele Zondi now joining us on the line. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. How does this work?
So basically, it's AI. So first of all, hello, Aldrin. So it's AI, and it's taking of people's voice recordings, and then digitally developing them to sound like the person, and for the person to sound the way they would have sounded, even though they would have said things, they would be saying things that they didn't exactly say when they were still alive, and to also then create video that looks like the person. So it almost looks like you looking at your relative on a video call when you have them speaking.
Oh, okay. So they come in the form of being on a digital platform.
It's a digital platform for now. But we do know that the way AI is developing and the way that robots are developing, there probably will come a time when there'd be individuals who say, well, we actually want a robot that sounds and looks like a relative.
Sure, yeah, this this type of technology and what we can do with this technology as well. But who are the people who are actually going for this? Who are the people that are saying that I'd love to connect with a loved one, or rather have a replica of my loved one? And I don't know, are they able to have like proper conversations on these digital platforms?
Well, not necessarily. So it can't be proper conversation. So for now, it would be coded to say certain things. And you say, who are the people? So it's basically ordinary Chinese people. It apparently it costs about 30 to 40,000 rand to have this created in China for this figure to live on your phone. So yeah, it wouldn't be a proper conversation. So you wouldn't throw phrases that the AI would not have learned yet for it to then answer back.
Yeah. So how far does this technology then go in terms of trying to make it as realistic as possible? What else is it that it can do?
At the moment, it's actually in its development stage. One of the, I was actually reading up on a father, right, who lost his son, who's about 22 years old, and he seems to be interested in putting in money for more development for them to be as human as possible in future, because he seems to like the fact that he can hear his son's voice from time to time and see his son's image moving moving on the phone from time to time. So it's still in its infancy, its development stage. But you'd remember that about a decade ago, there were holograms, like a hologram of Michael Jackson,
I was
a
about to
hologram of
Whitney
Tupac
Houston.
Shakur, for example. So celebrities would, who have passed on, would perform to people on a stage, and you'd see someone who, like Tupac, would have passed on a decade and a half before this hologram came into being, but he had concerts and was performing on concerts.
So does it mean that we could find this in the form of holograms as well?
Definitely. It would come to a point where there'd be holograms that you can switch on, and they would live in people's homes.
Wow. Would you do it?
Definitely not. It is kind of scary, right? Because I do believe that there's a whole issue of ethics that we need to look at, and our time on Earth, which comes to be and comes to pass as well on Earth, and there's a reason we don't live forever. But it seems like with technology, we're trying to make our relatives and our loved ones live forever.
Yeah, and we're also trying to find the fountain of youth. So.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Phumelele Zondile, lecturer at the DUT and also presenter of Network on the SABC News Channel 404. So would you actually do this? Would you try and resurrect a loved one who passed on through artificial intelligence, and perhaps even have a hologram that you put up in your living room, and every time you come back home you switch it on and say, "Hello mom, how are you doing?" Would you actually do it? It's 4 o'clock.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
The top story is Sawa Parliament supports sanctions against the EFF MPs, and Ramaphosa slams the high crime rate in the country. A very good afternoon. Parliament's Powers and Privileges Committee has endorsed the proposed sanction by the initiator that two EFF MPs, Nazir Paulsen and Kanya Xeza, be suspended from Parliament without pay effective from March next year. No sanctions were imposed on the third EFF MP, Veronica Mente, by the committee. Tanya Golden also recommended that the two apologize unconditionally for their conduct during President Cyril Ramaphosa's oral reply session in August last year. Golden says the motivation is based on the fact that they had previous transgressions where they were also suspended without pay for their conduct. She elaborates on the first sanction.
The recommended sanction is that both Mr. Xeza and Mr. Paulsen must give an unconditional verbal apology to the Speaker, the President, and to the people of South Africa for their conduct and for disrupting the National Assembly, and that the verbal apology must be delivered in the National Assembly no later than the end of February 2024.
The founding president of the Areta Party, Carl Niehaus, has urged all left-wing political parties to join the EFF ahead of the elections next year. He was briefing the media in Sandton, Joburg on the dissolution of his party. Niehaus has called on the former ANC President Jacob Zuma to stop campaigning for the governing party and instead support the unity of the EFF and Areta.
We call with humble urgency on Comrade Vuyo Zungulu of the African Transformation Movement, General Bantu Lemisa of the UDM, Mzwanele Nyonso of the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, Comrade Nevis Kekema of the AZAP, Comrade Ace Magashule, the President and lead of the African Congress for Transformation Act. We furthermore make a special call on our beloved leader and father, President Jacob Zuma, to refrain from supporting the ANC. We appeal to him not to campaign for the ANC.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says that the high crime rate continues to undermine the country's economy as it negatively affects citizens and businesses. He was speaking during the passing out parade of some 1,400 newly trained police officers in Kimberley in the Northern Cape. At least 10,000 new officers countrywide will be deployed to various units within the police service. The president says government, with the help of the police, will continue to fight the high crime rate.
Our country is under siege from criminals. Crime is wreaking havoc in our communities, destroying lives and tearing families apart. Crime is undermining our economy, affecting small and large businesses alike, and holding back a sustainable economic recovery. Our people are tired of crime.
Corruption, the energy crisis, and government's failure to address the socio-economic challenges have been cited as some of the factors that led to most South Africans losing trust in public institutions and the government. This is according to a report by the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. It released its 2023 South African Reconciliation Barometer report in Cape Town today. The Institute's Jan Hofmeyer says the report shows that 79% of South Africans have lost faith in the country's leadership.
We've seen over the past, particularly a decade and a half, that confidence that ordinary people have in public institutions to deliver services, to execute their mandate, that has declined. And I think that is something that is a bit of concern to us. Yeah.
And the family of the late Bulelwa Zahara Mkutukana have shared their last moments with the songstress. Zahara, who died at a Joburg hospital on Monday, is being remembered at a memorial service at the Rhema Bible Church in Joburg. Her sister Lumka Mkutukana says the family had to watch her taking her last breath after receiving a call from the hospital on Monday.
It's not easy to say she must rest in peace, but she was in pain at the hospital. I remember just after we left for the 3 o'clock visit, at 5 the doctor called and said we must come back. They told us to stay in the room and wait to see when Bulela will leave us. We called you for that. We called you for that. That's what they said. It was too painful. We were crying and prayed for 4 hours.
The top story this hour: Parliament's Powers and Privileges Committee has endorsed the proposed sanction by the initiator that 2 EFF MPs, Nazir Paulsen and Kanya Qeza, be suspended from Parliament without pay, effective from the 1st of March next year. Back with headlines at 1:30 for SAFM News. Kemudupi Makhalemele.
A very good afternoon to you in your SFM sports headlines. It's the Proteas. They're gearing up to take India, the first ball being bowled at Wanderers today, 5 a.m. And in rugby, the new Japan coach, Eddie Jones, saying he feels no guilt after walking out on the Wallabies. Let's find out more at around 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Stay slow on the run through Midrand today on your way out of Joburg to Pretoria. Delays first up to the new road exit. There's a breakdown there, so that's getting pretty heavy from Buccleuch as you line up through Allendale towards that new road exit. Ahead of that, it actually looks okay. There's a stationary truck around Old Joburg, but that traffic, the queue that we had earlier, has disappeared. It's probably all stuck behind the first truck at New Road now. Also, the N14, expect some queues going into central Pretoria this afternoon. Major delay alert if you're leaving Pietermaritzburg on your way to Durban. Big volumes today, and the stationary truck in the roadworks around Limfield Park, Umlas Road territory. So a queue from Market Road at Pietermaritzburg all the way through. Also, if you're driving inland, there's some roadworks and a breakdown around Top of Town Hill through towards Hilton. So there's quite a heavy delay there. Truck fire incident on Durban's N2 southbound. The road is temporarily closed from Gedde Road going into Spaghetti Junction. That's a queue behind that closure that pushes back right through to Queen Nundee Drive. There's a lot of pressure going north through Spaghetti Junction as well. Possibly, I would think, the onlooking factor. Crash on the Southern Freeway at Congella, so delays coming out of central Durban. And if you're driving into Cape Town today, just prepare for some delays. A stationary truck on the N1 at the R300, and that's pushing a queue back to Okavango Road in the Brackenfell area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Register to receive your National Senior Certificate Matric results with SABC Education and win a share of 10,000 Rand in airtime. SMS your exam number to 45856 or dial *120 *45856# and follow the prompts. Results to be received on the phone on the day of release. SMS charged at R1.50 and USSD at R1.50 per minute. Download the Matrix Mate app for free on Google Play and Apple App Stores. For more details, visit sabceducation.co.za. SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
The argument of who will lift the Carling Knockout Cup will be concluded by the referee's final whistle. Stellenbosch FC and TS Galaxy FC tackles each other for the big prize at the Moses Mabhida Stadium. Who will prevail, eThekwini, Stellies or the Rockets? Catch the Carling Knockout Cup final between Stellenbosch FC and TS Galaxy FC on Saturday 16th December at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM is sharing the festive spirit by giving away 5,000 Rand to 10 lucky winners. To enter, SMS SAFM Festive, followed by your name and what the festive season means to you to 41391. And you could win. Tune in to SAFM throughout December and we could be calling you. SMSs are charged at R1.50. Free SMSs, free minutes and SMS bundles do not apply. Terms and conditions apply. Visit safm.co.za for more information.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
10 past 4.
10 past 4. Bah, bah. In the hour.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
It is 10 past 4 coming up on the show in this hour. We focus on a meeting between the Border Management Authority of South Africa as well as their Zimbabwean counterparts, as Zimbabwe also looks at establishing a Border Management Authority. So we'll be having a conversation with them. We'll be speaking to one of the commissioners from the Border Management Authority. Unfortunately, we're told that Dr. Mike Masiapato is no longer available, so we'll be speaking to Stephen Van Niel, who's also with the South African Border Management Authority. So we'll be having that conversation in the next short while, and then also in conversation with Anele Qoya, who is the commissioner at the Public Service Commission, and this is following the interview that we had earlier on in the week, trying to find out from the Gauteng provincial government why it is failing to pay its service providers within the stipulated 30 days, which of course has been denied by the spokesperson for the Premier. Sizwe Pamla was arguing that as far as they're concerned, there are only two entities, which is the Health Department as well as the Infrastructure Department, that causes the delays, but it's not the figures that have been given by the Public Service Commission last week. So that conversation is coming up in the next short while. And then at around 10 to 5, we have our Tourism Thursdays. Today we're speaking to Tandiwe Matibela, General Manager for Global PR, Communications and Stakeholder Relations at the South African Tourism. And today the focus is going to be on sports tourism. What exactly is it and what opportunities are there for sports tourism? That conversation is coming up at around 10 to 4. And before that, we'll be speaking to a friend of Zahara. We'll be speaking to Thabo Jama, who actually has a single out with Zahara. I went to the memorial service a bit earlier on today at the Rema Bible Church and spoke a little bit with Thabo and just some of the concerns that he's raising, also about how the music industry really turned its back on Zahara. Some of the friends, as he says, who were now filling up this memorial service were friends who weren't there in her time of need. So that conversation is coming up at around 20 to 5. 0614-104-107, your ex at Aldrin Sampear, and you can also drop me a comment on our Facebook as well as our YouTube pages where we're streaming live from.
The only talk radio afternoon drive show that makes sense. Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear, right here on SAFM.
Afternoon, Aldrin. On this AI tool, they want to they're creating these voices. Aldrin, the technology has come to gotten a bit crazy now, the technology. So anyone who will do this thing that this guy is talking about, they are psychopaths. You must know, those people need therapy. They have not healed. They need therapy, my bro. They need to talk to somebody professionally. They are psychopaths.
Hi, Adrian. Why we wait for someone to die before we show that we care? On our communities, there are a lot of villages, homes, people that are suffering, and we are doing nothing about that because of no one will see us donating or doing the good thing. So my appeal to all South Africans is, let's go back to our communities and help those who really need our help, so that we can avoid this thing of waiting for the guy to pass on, then we come and donate. This is Jacob in Mokopan.
Hi, Aldrin. You're speaking with King in Rustenburg. Currently, I'm in Pretoria. But I want to emphasize an issue regarding Mavuso. People should understand political parties and its members is like a relationship, a husband and a wife, a girlfriend and a boyfriend. We do have some quarrels. But if we manage to deal with those quarrels, why not? Why Mavuso shouldn't go back to the ANC? He should go back to the ANC because they have managed to fix on the quarrels or the squabbles that were there. The other issue that we need to think of is that people, when they're talking about the ANC, they include everyone. They should say, I will never vote for the ANC because the ANC is corrupt. Thank you.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Okay, so we actually now have Dr. Mike Masiapato, who is a commissioner for the South Africa's Border Management Authority, who's joining us on the line. A Zimbabwean delegation is in South Africa for a 4-day visit to benchmark how Pretoria managed to establish a single border management authority. The visit comes days after the two countries engaged in a public spat after South Africa announced that it had intercepted over 400 children who were being trafficked from Zimbabwe. Harare is also working on a bill which, once enacted by Parliament, will establish the Zimbabwe Border Authority. The bilateral meeting is informed by the two countries' mutual interest to preserve their national security imperatives. To share more about the first half of the proceedings, we speak to Dr. Masiapato, who's the Commissioner for the South Africa's Border Management Authority. Commissioner, good afternoon and thank you so much for making time for us.
Good afternoon, Adrian, and thanks for the opportunity.
So I remember when you're explaining the purpose of having a border management authority, you were speaking of how you'd have different departments trying to manage the border, and these different departments, of course, all have their own HODs and so forth. Is this a similar problem with Zimbabwe as well?
Yeah, indeed. It is a similar problem that the Zimbabweans actually have, but not only them, most of the jurisdictions in the continent and also even in some of the countries, they do have a multi-agency approach where departments will send officials to get to the ground and effectively implement their respective laws on the ground in a highly fragmented manner. So they actually have the same problem. We have already addressed it by creating our Border Management Authority, which effectively removes this department out of the port. You create a single authority with a single command and control, and we do the work on their behalf as an implementing authority.
And are there any, glaring differences between our approach and what their bill is proposing?
Yeah. So, when we were busy engaging, particularly yesterday, because they also brought in their legal team who are fairly dealing with drafting. So one of the issues that was almost like they were trying to do, which we basically told them that is going to be very much challenging. It was more like they were creating an authority, but not necessarily taking over all the various functions, but more of an authority that was to then coordinate the various structures on the ground. And we then told them that in our experience, we tried that approach. We actually had 5 iterations in trying to coordinate the border environment, although not at a legislative level, meaning without a structure that has been legislated, but it was more of just creating structures to coordinate, and we tried that since 1996 until we realized that this does not work, and we then decided to use this model of border management authority.
Yeah. And was there an appreciation for the approach that South Africa has taken?
Yeah, no, indeed. I mean, on the basis of having a fuller appreciation of the model itself and how we are actually even implementing it, as it were, they definitely appreciated the approach, and they actually even agreed that they will definitely reconsider that initial thinking, and they will be able to move towards the model that we have actually adopted. And by the way, Adam, the reason why we have interest in this discussion is because once we are able to achieve, an integrated border management model across the various jurisdictions, it helps even in the context of engagement, even in the context of having to discuss, with your counterpart on border management issues. I can give you a typical example. On the from the 6th to the 9th of November, we spent a week in Maputo engaging with the colleagues in Mozambique, particularly in trying to address the issues relating to the Bombo border post. So, for example, on our side, we had very few officials, coming from the DNA, but we also had some colleagues from Zahara. On their side, they had 40 officials coming from different structures that are present in the border. So when you try to have a breakthrough on something, another one raises something, and then it becomes a problem. When you think that you are having a breakthrough on a particular discussion, another one from another structure. So it becomes difficult. But once you have a single authority, it becomes even easier, because now we discuss with the port commander, with the authority, especially for operational decision making, then it becomes easier. That's why it is in our interest for our neighbors to also achieve the same objective.
Yeah, but just quickly on the part around some of the cars that are being stolen and hijacked in South Africa and then being transported through the borders. Does the bill that Zimbabwe is putting forward have a way around how it will deal with that particular aspect?
Yeah, remember the actual model on its own, once it is adopted, once indeed they could adopt in the same way as South Africa, it means they will also have some, whatever that they will call them, but they will have some kind of border guards. So when they have border guards, it means they will also be deploying on the vulnerable segments on their side, meaning the segments, meaning the areas where people are actually taking this cars through. So when they have deployed such on their side and we have deployed our border guards on our side, then they start complementing each other in terms of addressing the scourge. Then it becomes better.
Okay. A final one, Commissioner. I don't know if the meeting dealt with this matter at all, but where is the Border Management Authority with regards to the allegation that was made by the Zimbabwe Home Affairs Minister rejecting the claims that that there were 40 buses that were intercepted?
You see, Adrian, that issue, we had to bring our Director General for Social Development, Mr. Mkunu, and he came with his team. We also brought in from their side the same colleagues to come and make sure that they deal with this issue once and for all. It was very much unfortunate, Adrian, to be honest. That is why I had said I am not going to enter into a discussion that is becoming political, because remember, we are not at the political level. We deal with the actual work. So it was unfortunate because the Minister of Social Development in Zimbabwe, Minister Moyo, did confirm that we did receive the children. They even indicated that some of the children, they are busy, reconciling them with their families, and they said other children are still at Beitbridge. The only difference that we had was about the issue of the number. But the other one came and said, no, there was no bus, there was no child, which was very much uncalled for. So the issue here is, yesterday we had a sit down on the issue and the colleagues compared notes operationally, and that matter has been addressed.
And it has been resolved. The children have been reconciled with their parents.
Yeah, in other words, it is not yet fully completed, Adrian, because of the numbers.
Yeah.
So they are actually in the process. Hence, I'm saying they were comparing notes as to how many have been and all of that. Maybe just to also give an example, you will remember we had 14 that got intercepted, unfortunately, already in the country.
Yeah.
The ones that were intercepted
going
in
to Cape Town, yeah.
Definitely. So those ones, remember, are now in South Africa, and our social development will then have to bring them into the Zimbabwean counterpart, and then they will have to process them back. That's why I'm saying it's not concluded, but it's a process that is underway. But that issue that there was no charge and no bus, it was very much unfortunate. Yeah.
So with the ones, with the Cape Town incident, or the buses that, well, the taxis that were actually supposed to be going to Cape Town, has it been established if those children were being trafficked, or if they were actually, there were the parents in Cape Town waiting to receive them?
You see, Adrian, this is the problem we are sitting with, and that is what we keep on trying to say. This is a very serious issue. You know, those ones, remember the people, those two people that were actually with those children, no relationship, no document. They are now arrested, and they are actually going through a court proceeding under the context of child trafficking. That's what is happening. Now, if we are to say, are we able to trace their children in Cape Town? You're not going to succeed in that because, number one, you don't even know the names of these children, and they are not even able to communicate that well. Now, the issue is the parents also, even if they can see this on the news, they are saying, I am not going to come out because once I come out, I'm going to also be in trouble with the law. So they also hibernate. So what then happens is we then have to process them backwards, back into the country. But we are, the story, Adrian, that says, no, these children are not being trafficked, but they're coming to their parents. It is a philosophical issue. I mean, we can ask now, where are those parents? Because if indeed they were there, they want to come out and say, no, this is my child. But even if they are there, they will not come out because they know what actually they did is illegal. You can't take children 5 years, put them in a bus, even if you pay the bus driver, and expect them to move between countries. It is unheard of, Adrian. So, and we can't allow that to happen in this instance.
Are the children still in South Africa?
No. The children, so are you referring to the ones?
I'm thinking the Cape Town ones, yeah.
No, those ones, they are being handled by our social development. And yesterday they were comparing notes. As of yesterday, they were still in South Africa, but they are busy in the process working with their Zimbabwean counterpart to process them. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. That is Dr. Mike Masiapato, who is the Commissioner of the South Africa's Border Management Authority.
Culinary tales bold and true that connects with joy, meal, and mood. Dijo le Bophelo, a show for sustenance of mind and heart, where food and choice and harmony flow. Catch Dijo le Bophelo and find your glow only on SABC2. Brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Let us envision a nation guided by Ubuntu and characterized by respect, ending gender-based violence and femicide proactively. Stand with me in reclaiming respect in our societies. Let us elevate the voices of survivors and prioritize prevention to break the cycle of violence. Join me, the GBVF Response Fund, and its stakeholders in transforming societal norms that perpetuate abuse and violence by adding your voice to this vital cause. In a world with respect, there is no GBVF. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
It is 27 minutes after 4 o'clock. We're in conversation next with Anele Qoya, who is a commissioner at the Public Service Commission. So we've been running a series of conversations surrounding the latest report emerging from the Public Service Commission around non-compliance and payment of invoices to suppliers within 30 days. Earlier this week, the spokesperson for the Gauteng Premier, Sizwe Pamla, said that the Premier would challenge the findings of the report, citing that the estimated invoice and cost of those outstanding invoices were overinflated. Just take a listen to what he had to say, and then we speak to Commissioner Qoya. So does it mean that you will be challenging this report, or what? Because this is, it also comes from Treasury.
No, we will be challenging that report because, like I'm saying, the 4.7, we have actually gone through the reports. We have seen it. The 4.7 billion that people are talking about it complies of all of the other provinces combined. So Gauteng, even the figures that we are quoting are not the figures that we have. Like I'm saying, that the figures with the report that I'm sitting with here is 1,064 million. That's the figure that Gauteng can confirm. All of the other figures that are being quoted in the media are not actually true.
Okay, let's speak to Commissioner Goya, who is a commissioner at the Public Service Commission. Commissioner, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. What's your understanding around what happened here, and also the Gauteng government saying that they refute the report stating that they owe suppliers over 4 billion? Hello, Commissioner.
Hello, Aldrin.
Sure, I can hear you now, Commissioner. You can go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to the listeners of SAFM. Let me start by saying that the report that we release on the payment of service providers is the information that we get from National Treasury. And the process that National Treasury embarks on is that every month they collate data from all provinces. Every department, they submit reports to Treasury because Treasury also has a responsibility to monitor the implementation of the 30 days payment. However, the departments always fail to meet that deadline, and they would always cite different reasons. So it would be surprising if any provincial government decides to challenge the report. But what we are saying as the Public Service Commission, well, they can challenge the report that we received from Treasury. So we don't even change a thing in terms of the figures that we get from Treasury. We get it from Treasury as is. And we release it to the public as is because we are of the firm view that for the purposes of accountability and transparency, we have a responsibility to report an account to the members of the public, and that is exactly what we are doing. Hence, we are saying we are even inviting service providers who have not been paid for more than 30 days. If your invoice is older than 30 days, lying in any government department, feel free to contact the Public Service Commission so that we can follow that up.
Okay, Commissioner, unfortunately we've run out of time, but I hope that perhaps maybe one of these days we'll be able to get you back on the line so that we actually have the conversation with the impact that this is having on the service providers and speak to some of those service providers.
Anytime we are easy, we are prepared to engage at any given time.
Thank you so much. That is Anele Goya, Commissioner at the Public Service Commission. So we're going to put together a conversation around this. If you are a supplier of the government, if you do supply the government with any products and perhaps maybe a service that you provide to the state as well, and you haven't been paid within the stipulated 30 days, please do get in contact with us, and then we'll put together a panel conversation, and we'll also invite the Public Service Commission. It's a minute after 4:30, time for the news headlines with Mudupi Makhalimele.
Thank you very much, Brother Aldrin. In your headlines, the mother of the late 15-year-old Mathomola Mosweu, who was caught stealing heads of sunflowers in 2017, has filed a multi-million rand suit against two farm workers, Peter Doorwaard and Philip Schutter. Parliament's Powers and Privileges Committee has endorsed the proposed sanctions by the initiator that two EFF MPs, Nazir Paulsen and Kanya Kleza, be suspended from Parliament without pay, effective from March next year. And the family of the late Bulelwa Zahara Mkutukana have shared their last moments with the songstress at a memorial service at the Rhema Bible Church in Joburg. Details of these and other stories with Greg at 5.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, stays fairly busy on the run through Midrand, both directions. In fact, if you're heading out of Joburg through to Pretoria, or baked out at New Road has got everything backed and stacked from Buccleuch. And if you're at Joburg bound, crash just before Buccleuch has got you backed and stacked from Allendale Road. So both ways, fairly heavy congestion there. If you're in Joburg CBD, this is seasonal, but you will see some traffic around the Newark Street taxi rank. We've seen it just building and building this week, and it'll be with us right through until probably about the 22nd of December. If you're around that North Street taxi rank and that area, just expect some heavy traffic. Heading to Durban, fairly big volumes today. I see the volumes, in fact, are just peaking at 1,600 vehicles an hour, so that's pretty busy. So the later we've gone in today, the bigger the volumes we've got. There's a heavy backlog between Pietermaritzburg and the breakdown at Amnos Road. There's a heavy backlog between Pietermaritzburg and Hilton due to a breakdown going up towards the Howick area as well. And then Cape Town, heavy pressure inbound. Today it's a stationary vehicle. Stationary truck has been there all afternoon. N1 just by the R300, and that's pushing traffic back to Kraaifontein. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
It's your last chance to catch our festive fragrance weekend savings at Dis-Chem Pharmacies. Get an incredible 20% off your favorite fragrance like Adidas, Zahara, Dolce & Gabbana, Daniel, Issey Miyake, Jean Artiste, Jean Paul Gaultier, Lanthoric, Mugler and Revlon. This weekend only 16 and 17 December. Shop online or in store for the best prices on the widest range of fragrances. Dis-Chem Pharmacies. Better health starts here.
Keeping up with your TV license balance inquiries is now simpler than ever. No more waiting in queues. No more phone calls. Just SMS your ID or TV license account number to 44210 and secure your legal viewing fast and simple. Standard SMS rates will be charged. Terms and conditions apply. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good afternoon, and it's cricket first. After a stellar performance against India in their second KFC T20 international match that took place at St. George's Park in Gqeberha, the Proteas are looking to extend their lead and clinch the series against the Cricket World Cup finalists. Now, match one of the series was abandoned without a ball being bowled, and that was due to rain in Durban on Sunday. And the Proteas now meet the Indians at Wanderers Stadium in Johannesburg tonight. First ball being bowled at 5 p.m. in what was a rain-effective match. Reza Hendricks attacking intent with the bat together with 3 wickets by the exciting prospect Gerald Coetzee, helping the Proteas edge out India by 5 wickets. Now we go to the Proteas spinner Tabraiz Shamsi, believing the key to a strong national team lies in mass participation in the global T20 league, such as the Indian Premier League, the SA20 and others. With the domestic circuit, of course, underway, there's been most South Africans find pathways to the Proteas setup. Shamsi feels the introduction of the SA20 earlier this year has taken things up a few notches.
I think the SA20 is brilliant for our country, giving the exposure to players that, maybe just below the international level and guys that are, close to playing for the Proteas, because you're playing with and against the best South African players as well as, the best overseas players.
In the meantime, let's go to soccer. Bafana coach Hugo Bruges announcing his preliminary squad for next year's Africa Cup of Nations in Côte d'Ivoire. The Belgian mentor announcing a 50-man prelim squad that will be trimmed to 23 players in the beginning of the new year, shortly before departure to the West African country. Bruges' charges will assemble for a camp on the 4th of January 2022 and then travel to Stellenbosch for a training camp that will be held in the Western Cape City until the 9th of January 2024. Now, Burnley's Lyle Foster and Al Ahly's Percy Tau headline the Bafana squad. The 34th edition of the biennial continental tournament will be held in Côte d'Ivoire from the 13th of January to the 11th of February. And elsewhere in rugby, Eben Etzebeth has been named the My Players Player of the Year after helping the Springboks to a record 4th World Cup in 2023. The awards voted for by the players from all over the country honour excellence, dedication and sportsmanship. Overall, there are 3 categories: Player of the Year, Sevens Player of the Year and the Women's Player of the Year, dedicated to players who exhibited unparalleled commitment to the game, and that was throughout the season in terms of performance and leadership. The 32-year-old Springbok lock was voted the South African Player of the Year. And the Blitzboks, Shilton van Wyk was crowned Best Sevens Player in the land, and Wright Simkari took home the Women's Player of the Year gong for her individual brilliance this past season. And finally, staying with rugby, former England coach, that's the also Wallabies coach, because Rugby Australia as well have said that the departed Eddie Jones, he did feel terrible about Australia's World Cup failure, but insists he feels no guilt about the process in which he returned to Japan head coach as he stepped down from his post with the Wallabies. At a press conference today, the 63-year-old faced more questions about how and when he made contact with the Japanese Rugby Football Union, about replacing Jamie Joseph, having repeatedly denied reports about contact with the Japan Rugby Federation that emerged during the World Cup. Now, the former England coach said he had not been interviewed for the job until this month, and that a Zoom call with the recruiters on the 25th of August is when it all happened. And that's a wrap of your sport on Beyond the Headlines. We'll bring you more headlines top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And let's look what's happening on the markets with Paswana Mpahlele, Senior Portfolio Manager at Markwe Fund Managers. Paswana, good afternoon, and thank you so much for making time for us. Tell us what's been happening on the markets and also looking at international developments.
Afternoon, Aldrin. It's been a blockbuster the last few days from a micro perspective, but yesterday's update by the central banks was the key one. The Fed has expected kept interest rates unchanged to end the 2023 policy meetings, but presented what was called surprising, dovish message around how they are happy to see that inflation is easing, along with growth, unfortunately, as we saw the 10-year yields breaking below that 4-year tail level, indicating risk growth. And this allowed them to say that they are now looking into interest rate cuts into 2024. They've priced in three interest rate cuts going forward, and this path has now opened it up and signaled to other central banks that they could follow suit. But the likes of the BOE and central banks didn't take a very dovish tone. They paused, but on a hawkish tone, as they faced more worse economic data, as they still have to worry about inflation. Looking ahead, investors are now expecting borrowing costs to be cheaper for businesses and consumers, and it was better than expected news, as that's why we saw global stocks rallying since yesterday. And investors are now putting more money out of cash.
Thank you so much. That is Paswana Mpahlele, Senior Portfolio Manager at Markwe Fund Managers. We're taking your voice notes on 0614-104-107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Our studio line is 086-000-2032. Remember that we're also streaming live on YouTube as well as Facebook, so I'll be taking some of your comments there as well.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
Good afternoon, Aldrin and Gamo from Centurion. Listening to the story of these Zimbabwean children who were brought into the country illegally, supposedly to come to their parents, is so incredibly upsetting. It is so incredibly upsetting. I do not care if these parents know these uncles, in inverted commas, and they paid for their transportation to come here. Children are not goods. A lot can go horribly wrong with children. Molestation, all kinds of horrific things. I don't care how desperate you are. You do not play around with your children like that. It is horrific. It is horrific what these parents have done, if it is indeed parents. I'm mortified, honestly. Children are not goods to be moved around like that. No.
Why, Aldrin? Just when I heard of his resignation from the ANC, I was wondering, after so many years, the old man seeing corruption in the ANC, and suddenly he just wants to go, just like that. He was there, and I knew he was going to come back. I knew. Now, if I can meet Dr. Sima, I'm going to ask him one question. Is the DNA of corruption no longer with the ANC now that he went back to the ANC? Is the DNA no longer with the ANC now? Hey, these guys are confused, but why? That's politics. Here is now Carney House convince now that he's going to join the EFF, he wants people to come to go with him. I've never seen a confused guy like that one. Hi, Aldrin. Good afternoon. Marumo Mahiking.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
It is 17 minutes now before 5 o'clock. We're in conversation next with Thabo Jama, who is a musician and also Zahara's friend. So choreographer and presenter Somizi Mhlongo has apologized to the late Bulelwa Zahara Mkutukana for not being there when she needed him the most, and has also reminded South Africans that making silly jokes is inappropriate when one is going through difficult times. Let's now speak to Zahara's friend, who attended the memorial service that took place at the Rema Bible Church in Randburg, north of Johannesburg. But first, let's quickly listen to what Somizi Mhlongo had to say, and then we speak to Thabo.
The other day I posted something about how we have failed her as an industry, as friends. We have failed her, and we owe her an apology. And I'm one of the people that owes her an apology. And there was a time I remember I was hosting the Summer Awards, and I made a joke about her drinking and stuff. And only later in years you realize what you say to people, how you make people feel, is very important, how you make people feel. And I learned my lesson because I took it for granted as a joke. You don't know how much you hurt people. And I realized later that I've hurt her. And luckily, we had time on earth to reconcile and become friends again. But still, she went through a rough time. Where was Somizi? Nowhere. Where were we? Nowhere. When we could have helped and said, Chomi, you need help on ABCD, we're carrying on with our lives. And we need to internally apologize to her and say, we are sorry, we can do better. What are we learning from Zahara's story is to do better. Stop making fun of other people's downfalls. Besimhleba, simhleka, singamncedisi. And here I am now standing as if I was there throughout. I wasn't there throughout. So, the biggest lesson I've learned, and I hope everyone in this room learns, don't ever laugh or make a joke on someone else's downfall. If you can't help, shut up. If you can't contribute positively, shut up. The same people on social media that keep on saying, we've lost an icon. Did you treat her like an icon? I don't think so. Did you treat her like you are scared of losing her? I don't think so. But we can change. We can do better. Moving forward, anyone who's listening to this, let's do better. In the name of Zahara, let's do better.
And let's speak to Thabo Jama, Zahara's friend and also fellow musician. Thabo, good afternoon. Thank you once again for making time for us. So earlier on, when I was at the memorial service, we reflected a bit on what Somizi had to say, and especially the part where he says that when Zahara needed me or needed us, we were not there, but you were one of the friends that were actually there. Tell us about those moments of despair that she had.
Hi, everyone. Hi to the listeners. This is Thabo Jama, Zahara's friend. Yes, I respect what Somizi said because I was there. I thought probably he was going to say something, but like I'm saying, I was. Yes, true. I was there for Zahara. I don't want to feel like I'm the hero or whatsoever. I've been with Zahara. The time she was losing her house, I was the one going to radio stations with her alone. I was there for her when she didn't have food in the house. I asked her, Zahara, where are your media space people? The only thing that she said to me, Puma up. Andithi ukhona. Andithi wena ukhona. Ngandibuza nabanye abantu. So, today it was, it was full. I wish Nokotletu saw the time Zahara needed people. It pains me, but it's okay. But I just want to say thank you to Somizi for what he said. But the rest, guys, la pretender, guys. Yo. People are good pretenders. So there are people that flew far away to go to a memorial as Zahara. Where were they? Remember, Zahara is the first person that introduced me in the industry. I didn't know the industry. We did a song called Tandaza. Tabo Jama featuring Zahara. Tandaza. My first song with Zahara. I was a stranger to Zahara, but she felt comfortable with me. I don't know why. We became friends. Her mother loves me. Her brother Junior, they love me so much because they knew every time when Zahara needed usizo, I was there. I would leave everything and run to Zahara.
But what do you think, though, Thabo, considering what has happened now and some of these tributes that we're listening to, the apology also that has come through, what do you think as industry people the lesson should be from the experience of Zahara? And perhaps maybe we need to speak about the individual artists as well and how they are able to take care of themselves with their own finances.
Okay, you know what, Nick? Now I'm just going to be an honest person. I'm always honest with whatever that I'm saying. Thina abantu bamnyama asilaleli. Rona batho ba ntse re utlwelele. Wa bona today to other people it's an eye opening. To other people it's just an ignorant. We might act like we've listened to what Somizi said, but tomorrow we're gonna repeat it. But that about Rona, especially I'm gonna speak on black people. How when they've got money they think they're better than everyone. You are forgetting. There's a word that says never forget where you're coming from. That's where we always make a problem. You make a hit today, you think you are better than someone else. Tomorrow you fall, there's Thabo Jama on the space. Thabo Jama is a hit maker. So guys, you need to be very careful with your money. This industry, I remember, I'm going to be short about this. I remember there was Brenda Fassie, there was Mama. More industry in Nersa failure. Right now, whoever that wants to become an artist, it's just it happens within a space of time. Right now, God has given us an opportunity. The reason why I'm saying that, I'm saying to you, you can trend tomorrow, it can be me, or it can be someone else. So you are given space, you are given time to use your money wisely. When you trend, you're making money. Make sure you open a business. Make sure you do things that's going to generate money. Don't think, you're better than another person. Because this is industry. Batho ba bantsi tlogelang maemo a ka se go itse gope. Save up for the funeral promise tsa lona. Put money away, save money as little as 100 rand, put it away every time. It's gonna help you. Le busy la para di Louis Vuitton, la para di Gucci, you acting so garalona you are big, but when you pass on or when there's rainy days you've got nothing. The next thing you go to people, you ask for help. And then people don't want to help you. Because they feel you had your chance. You blow it. Do you understand? Yes.
Thabo, thank you so much for your time. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but I really appreciate that you've made time for us. And especially for me, that last part of the contribution is that as the artist as well, you also have a responsibility to take care of yourself and take care of your finances. So that you don't become destitute and you end up not even having food in your house and asking people to help out. But Thabo, thank you so much for your time and condolences to all of Zahara's friends, fans, as well as family.
Thank you so much, guys.
It's in those minds young and aflame, in the reach of those dare to reach, in the possibilities dancing just for you, in the eye and ear of a dream in fever. Yes, it's in hope. Hope and light pulled near and sent afar. Yes, it's in hope. From us to you. SABC Education. Enriching minds. Enriching lives.
Think big on the Insider SA this Monday evening at 6 as content creator Mihlali Ndamase drops some pearls.
It's constantly about innovating yourself, upping your game.
Learn to spin with
T-Will Touch. I'm letting you come and spend a day and time with me. You already know I'm with the king of spins. Watch me do it.
And Vuyo Oyiya turns her duk into a work of art.
And look where we are today.
That's the Insider SA. This Monday at 6. Repeat Saturday at 1 p.m. and Sunday morning at 10:30 on S3.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
The next conversation is brought to you by SA Tourism. We're in conversation next with Thandiwe Matibela, who's the General Manager for Global PR Communications and Stakeholder Relations at the South African Tourism. So the recent accomplishments in rugby as well as cricket have not only brought glory to South Africa on the sports stage, but have also opened an exciting opportunity for tourism and economic growth. Our guest Thandiwe Matibela helps us explore these connections as she will also unpack the multifaceted impact of sport on a nation's brand and its tour and the tourism industry of that particular country. Thandiwe now joining us on the line. Thandiwe, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. So we're speaking sports tourism, and it's happening just a day before we have an entire public holiday that was brought by sports.
Hello. Yes, isn't that just amazing? It's again the spirit of South Africanism flourishing, and now we are, enjoying an additional holiday where the tourism sector will be boosted as well.
Yeah, tell us about sports tourism. What is it?
Sports tourism really is people, that travel for the sole purpose of either attending a sport event or actually, being part of a sporting event itself. But also sports tourism is actually a byproduct of sporting events that happen in a country where the tourism sector is boosted.
And then looking at those opportunities that are out there, before we look at what's available locally, globally, why is it becoming such a trend?
Trend because it's one of the best ways and one of the most effective ways to actually, market and promote a destination. There's a lot of sporting fans that actually travel just to attend a sporting event, and then they tend to sample, the country's tourism offering.
Okay, so as we indicated in my introduction as well, a fantastic sporting year for South Africa, of course, with the Springboks as well as the Rugby World Cup. But then we also had the Netball World Cup that was taking place here, hosted successfully in South Africa, and the Proteas playing India today, following a good run of form. What does all of these successes on the international sporting stage do for South Africa as a destination?
It profiles us positively, right? And it also showcases that South Africa is actually capable of hosting events. In this particular case, we're talking about sporting events, but events of any nature. As South African tourism, we are obviously ensuring that we market our country as a capable and a destination that has capacity to host events. That's why we talk about the MICE sector. And hosting sporting events such as the Netball World Cup that you have cited helps to showcase that. If you look at the Netball World Cup specifically, it was a conference center, which is the CTICC, that actually hosted a sporting event. It converted the conference center, and this is something that also just shows our innovativeness and our creativity. So it really is good in positioning South Africa in that regard.
I have to say that conversion was incredible.
It was amazing.
Taking like a whole, because it is the international Cape Town Convention Center, which we would normally go to an event, which will probably be an expo, or you have people sitting down at a conference, but not necessarily a sporting event.
Exactly, and look at what we did with it.
Sure. So some of the potential that's out there.
Some of the potential that's out there, South Africa will be hosting the Cricket World Cup with 2 other countries. So really we are in 2027, I think. So we are really, partnering also with the greater African sector and the greater African continent. And that is important. We need to grow together as an African, as a continent, because nobody else is going to support our tourism sector. Nobody else is going to support our business events if we do not collaborate. So that's also quite important. But we all remember, the years. We all remember the energy from the 2010 FIFA World Cup, and we really need more of those events. We know how we just felt recently, when the Bokke won, the Rugby World Cup. They were all the way out in Paris, but the effects were certainly felt in our country, and that is why tomorrow we've got what has now become known as the Rugby World Cup holiday. So it really is just amazing what sports can do for us.
Yeah, and then speaking about domestic travel and sports tourism at a domestic level, I don't know, is Tourism SA having conversations, for instance, with, let's say, with the popular teams like the Chiefs, the Pirates, the Sundowns, to say that you can't necessarily just play at 3 selected stadiums? Can you broaden up your options at least and take them out to different provinces as well, so that we encourage the tourism aspect as well, where we have the fans actually traveling to those provinces, because they are willing to do that?
Look, as South African tourism, we're always willing to have conversations with various partners. At this point, there is nothing formal, that speaks to those kind of conversations. But certainly, we have partnered up with the PSL before in promoting our short-left campaign. So it's certainly something that we could explore, but there's nothing currently that is on the table that speaks to the formalization of such conversations.
Thank you so much.
But what we do know, Aldrin, sorry if I may come in, is that, a lot of sporting fans will travel across different provinces to actually follow their favorite team. Yeah.
And opportunity,
and we love it.
And opportunities for the informal sector, especially as well. And I guess for other people to explore the country,
Exactly. I don't know if you remember, there was a big rugby match that took place in Mpumalanga earlier this year or last year.
Yes.
The entire tourism sector in Mpumalanga
You
was
see?
booked out. So
you see, the people are there and the people are willing to move. So we need to convince these sporting leagues as well to say, hey, come on, let's explore this and let's explore our country. But thank you so much for your time. Tandiwe Matibela, who's the General Manager for Global PR, Communications and Stakeholder Relations at South African Tourism. And this conversation proudly brought to you by South African Tourism.
There is a piece of paradise for everyone in South Africa. You can get lost in the clear night sky of the desert, hike up to majestic mountains and waterfalls, explore the fun and vibey outdoor events and festivities, feast on perfect seafood on a tranquil coast, or just cruise on a game drive witnessing the Big Five. Whatever your taste, opportunities await. SA Tourism, inspiring new ways.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Teenager's family files civil suit against farm workers in a memorial service for Zahara. Good day to you. The mother of the late 15-year-old Mahlamola Mosweu has filed a multi-million rand civil suit against two farm workers, Peter Durovat and Philip Skutter. The two caught the boy stealing heads of sunflowers at Kolini in the northwest in 2017. The civil claim is also against the company they work for and the owner. The teenager died while the two men were transporting him to a local police station. Skutter and Durovat were found guilty of the boy's murder, but the Supreme Court of Appeal overturned their conviction and sentence 3 years ago. Godrish Gadi is Agnes Mosweu's legal representative.
An arrester has got a duty of care over an arrestee, and that was never done. They never paid attention to detail the way a reasonable person would have done. There's a lot of omissions and negligence. We are not in a position to say the rands and cents, but we can safely say it's over several millions of rands of damages compensation being sought against the defendants.
The Powers and Privileges Committees endorsed the proposed sanction by the initiator, Tanya Golden, that two EFF MPs, Nazia Paulson and Kainet Kleza, be suspended from Parliament for a month without pay. No sanctions were imposed on the third EFF MP by the committee. Golden also recommended that the two apologise unconditionally for their conduct during the President's oral reply session in August last year. She says the motivation is based on the fact that they had previous transgressions where they were also suspended without pay for their conduct. She elaborates on the first sanction.
Both Mr. Skeza and Mr. Paulson must give an unconditional verbal apology to the Speaker, the President, Mr. Ramaphosa, and to the people of South Africa for their conduct and for disrupting the National Assembly proceedings on 30 August 2022. And that the verbal apology, as I have now recommended, and in the words that I have recommended, must be delivered in the National Assembly no later than the end of February 2024.
In addition, Golden also elaborates on the second part of the sanction.
Chair and committee, my further recommendation is, in terms of Section 12(9), read together with Section 12(5)(g), if I'm not mistaken, yes, thank you, that both Mr. Skeza and Mr. Paulson be suspended from Parliament for 30 days without remuneration.
The Tourism Business Council of SA says the frequent unsafe levels of E. coli in some Durban beaches could be detrimental to tourism and the local economy this festive season. E. coli is an indicator of the presence of sewage in the water. Water quality at Durban swimming beaches is back in the spotlight after the eThekwini municipality released water test results this week showing high E. coli levels at 6 swimming beaches. The council's Shifiwa Shibengwa.
The opening and the closing of the beach is a huge concern for us in the tourism industry. We have been vocalizing this for the past year since the natural disaster that happened in Durban or in the KZN area, and we have said that whatever needs to be done needs to be fixed for the tourism economy to continue to grow in that particular area. What we are seeing now is that we have the situation of open, close, which is not sustainable. It is not conducive for our operating environment. When people think of Durban, they think of coming to the beach. When you close the beach in Durban, it simply means that you're diverting the traffic to elsewhere around the country.
The family of the late Bulwer Zahara Mkutukana have shared their last moments with the songstress. Zahara, who died at a Johannesburg hospital on Monday, is being remembered at a memorial service at the Rema Bible Church in Johannesburg. Her sister Lumka says the family had to watch her taking her last breath after receiving a call from the hospital.
It's not easy to say she must rest in peace, but she was in pain at the hospital. I remember just after we left for the 3 o'clock visit, at 5 the doctor called and said we must come back. They told us to stay in the room and wait to see when Bulela will leave us. We called you for that. That's what they said. It was too painful. We were crying and prayed for 4 hours.
The top story, the mother of a late 15-year-old boy has filed a multi-million rand civil suit against 2 farm workers. The 2 caught the boy allegedly stealing heads of sunflowers at Colini in the northwest in 2017. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khoz.
And I'm Zaid Khan. Welcome to your sports headlines. And beyond the headlines, well, let's go to the cricket now. And it is Team South Africa taking on Team India. And the spin of the coin went South Africa's way. They've put India into bat. This is the 3rd T20I taking place at Wanderers. We'll have all these stories and more at around 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Let's just focus on the mid-rand. It's been very heavy today. You might be thinking, roads are emptying out this time of year, but that's not the case. We've seen some very heavy traffic on that mid-rand corridor. The breakdown at New Roads is largely out of the way. That traffic is starting to move. And there was a crash on the southbound side coming into Joburg. That's also being cleared. Backlog from Allendale, but that should start to move through pretty quickly. If you're driving around Durban this afternoon, some really heavy traffic. We had an earlier truck fire incident at Spaghetti Junction. It's still there. Traffic is jammed all the way back through to Queen Nandi Drive. That's coming southbound into Durban. There's quite a bit of pressure going off the N3 onto the N2 north up towards that scene as well, through 4 level towards Umgeni Road. And then further to the north, there's a breakdown in the roadworks before Gateway. So from Queen Nandi Drive going north, that's a heavy queue. Plenty of traffic on Durban's M4 today between Blue Lagoon and Umhlanga, north and south. A collision on the southern freeway at Kongela and Bilo. Big backlogs coming off the Esplanade as you leave Durban and turn down towards that M4 southern freeway. And still a lot of traffic heading from Pietermaritzburg down to Amlas Road. There's a stationary truck in the roadworks there, and some heavy pressure out of Pietermaritzburg up to Hilton. Again, roadworks and a breakdown. And Cape Town as well, some heavy traffic on the N1 into town. This is sort of off-peak and a bit unusual. It's a broken down truck at the R300. The traffic's all the way back through to Justenburg. And a crash on the N2 out of town at the M5, slowing traffic through Hospital Bends. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Gautrain is for the legends who make moves to save and pay from as little as 45 Rand from Pretoria to Midrand. It's for our clever who turn 5-liter bottles into workout dumbbells. And for the slim oaks who bring a home-cooked scuff team to work every day. So when it comes to travel, make moves that save and pay from as little as 45 Rand from Pretoria to Midrand Station. Gautrain, for people on the move.
Get your payments done with the utmost security and convenience when you purchase a TV license now. With our new secure payment systems with a one-time PIN, OTP feature, and the choice of receiving your OTP via SMS or email, you can ensure prompt and secure payments. The additional use of capture will protect you against spam and automated data attractions. With TV licenses, you can enjoy watching all your favorite shows or movies that matter to you. Get yours today. Visit www.tvlic.co.za.
SAFM is sharing the festive spirit by giving away 5,000 Rand to 10 lucky winners. To enter, SMS SAFM Festive, followed by your name and what the festive season means to you to 41391. And you could win. Tune in to SAFM throughout December and we could be calling you. SMSs are charged at R1.50. Free SMSs, free minutes and SMS bundles do not apply. Terms and conditions apply. Visit safm.co.za for more information. Beyond the Headline on SAFM, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
It is 9 minutes after 5 o'clock and it's time for the interview. Our focus is going to be on what we've been seeing happening over the past few weeks. So this week, again, dominated by another mining sit-in at Gold One mine operations in Springs in Gauteng. This is off the back of a similar protest in the Platinum Belt at the Bakubong Platinum Mine last week and another back in October 2023 at the Gold One mine operation. So today we have invited a panel to unpack this trend emerging as a form of protest within the industry, what unions are hearing from their members and how employers are responding to this trend. So we have Dr. Ibrahim Harvey, who's a political writer, commentator and former COSATU unionist. We also have Frans Baleni, former General Secretary of the National Union of Mine Workers, and also Ziad Hassan, who is the head of legal at Gold One Mine. And Ziad, let's start off with you. Good afternoon and thank you so much for making time for us.
Good afternoon.
What's the situation currently at Gold One Mine?
So the situation is that we've, in an effort to calm tensions, we've had an early Christmas break closure, which is effective today. We'll only start calling employees back on the 2nd of January. That will allow us an opportunity, firstly, to attend to the damage to equipment that's been caused underground. But also to give us a bit of a cooling off period with tensions having been as high as they've been over the last week and the last few months. We've just concluded a meeting with AMCU because the closed shop agreement with the NUM terminates today. So the recognition, the process for verification as a recognized trade union commenced today with AMCU, and so within the coming weeks, we'll start doing verification of the employees and we'll receive their stop order forms. So we certainly hope that going into next year, we have a better shot at securing lasting labor peace. It's been a very turbulent few months, and from a production point of view, it's been we've taken very substantial losses.
Okay, so the recognition of AMCU, by when would that be confirmed?
So there is a process in terms of Section 21 of the Labour Relations Act. They would need to submit the forms to us officially, which they'll do, I presume, later tonight or tomorrow morning. We would then, together with them and the NUM, conduct a verification process. We would likely conclude that within a few weeks. At the same time, members electing to join AMCU would have to serve notice to the NUM that they would be terminating their membership with the NUM. So the earliest that AMCU would have formal recognition would be 30 days from today. And that but the process will commence, and that communication will be made to the employees from our side, but it will also be communicated to members from the AMCU side, and again, hopefully that will calm a lot of the tensions that's been going on.
Okay. Now, let's deal with this issue around sit-ins. And a recent interview that you had with Sakina Kwamendo, you also spoke about it becoming a trend, and I think it was also expressed in one of the meetings with the Mineral Council of South Africa. Can you speak to us about that?
Well, yeah, look, I mean, I think the incident that happened at Gold One in October started something of an unfortunate trend within the industry. And I think for us it's a very difficult situation in the sense of, we've had 2 court orders prohibiting that conduct. Despite that, there were 2 sit-ins, and there's very little that we can actually do once the sit-in commences, because it's extremely dangerous to then to go underground and try to retrieve employees back to surface. The police are unwilling to engage because they don't want to get into a situation where there's potential conflict between them and the miners, which could potentially lead to losses of lives and a Marikana type situation. So it puts us in an extremely vulnerable position as mines. And I think, unfortunately, unions have sort of gotten to a point where this has become a fairly common and relatively easy way to get the attention of miners. And I think as a sector, it's something that we need to work very hard. And Minister Mantashe was emphatic in condemning this as a form of protest action. And I think as a sector, we do need to put our heads together to come up with lasting solutions.
Okay. Dr. Harvey, thank you so much for making time for us. Listening into what Ziad had said now, and also that it is becoming a trend, we know that this is nothing new. It has happened before, but the resurgence of it again, what does this tell us about what's happening?
Yeah, no, a very unfortunate precedent was set at Gold One with that, hostage-taking underground thing. And you can see the pattern there after it's beginning to spread. It's very unfortunate, I must tell you, because, I've learned about the history of this particular mine regarding, NUM having this closed shop agreement and AMCU coming up, and claiming that they've got majority membership, and that management was refusing to recognize. But the thing is, you need to institute formal processes. This membership auditing and verification process that you refer to, only as a result of that can you then decide, and see very clearly which union, AMCO, NUM, is supported by the majority of members. It's a fairly simple exercise, but this whole thing has been clouded. And, it's very unfortunate for me to tell you that if it is mainly AMCO members, instigating the underground, they created very serious problems for the union and, in fact, the verification process. And you've got to look at life after this whole thing is settled, and whichever union, it would appear that AMCO, despite the violence, is going to emerge, it appears to my mind, as the majority union there. But they've made such a mess, and I mean, those are legitimate charges of racism. If you look at the attack on white managerial staff, etc., and how they were humiliated and the violence, those are very serious charges. And besides violence, there's a charge of racism itself. It seems they were targeted. So I've never heard, in my entire trade union life, I've never heard in the entire history of the labor movement in this country, and particularly in the mining industry, something of this nature. It's just crazy what has been happening there. And really, the management has taken the right decision. You close today and reopen on the 1st or 2nd of January and allow this period, to deal with the outstanding issues. But a very, very unfortunate development, I must tell you, in the mining industry. And let us hope that over this festive season, sense can prevail and these issues can be resolved early next year.
Okay, let's bring in Frans Baleni, former General Secretary of the National Union of Mine Workers. You're reading around what is happening now. Also, again, Ziad speaking about a trend. We know also of the Bakubong Platinum Mine as well, where the workers there also stage a sit-in. What do you make of this and also this form of protest? And as I indicated earlier on as well, is that the protest itself is nothing new, although Dr. Harvey brings in the element around the racism that he says that was experienced by the white managers.
Good afternoon, Aldrin, the fellow panelists, SAFM listeners, and your good team, Captain. Firstly, I must indicate that this is not a trend. We have close to over 600 mines in South Africa. And the sit-in has happened in 2 mines so far, with Gold One having done it twice in a short space of time. I wouldn't say it's a trend. What I can say that we have experienced it around 2012, when people start to operate outside the house rules. And that complicates things because they're not following the procedure, they are not following the existing labor laws, as Dr. Harvey said. The biggest threat, Aldrin, with a sitting underground, one is the safety of all involved, and secondly, individuals, given their medical condition, their personal situation, they are then compromised. And thirdly, it affects further production work. It means you can't blast, which means that the future of the mine can be easily compromised. So, firstly, that would be my take. The trend of operating outside the rule is the biggest threat, which we saw in 2012, which resulted to many lives being lost.
Yeah. Ziad, your response to that, this is not a trend, but the trend that is there, which is a threat, perhaps is the recognition of rather, as Dr. Harvey has pointed out, following the rules.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I suppose you'd probably need to wait for a longer period of time to establish whether this is a trend or not. It's happened a few times since it's happened at Gold One, but I agree. I think it's a failure of following the rules. It's a lack of discipline.
Even from the mine side, the company side.
Well, look, I think from a company point of view, this has been we've come a long road in terms of the process with AMCU trying to get recognition, and the whole idea of closed shop agreements are controversial in itself. But the closed shop agreement that we had with NUM prevented us from formally engaging with AMCU until such time as that closed shop agreement was terminated in a legally sound manner. And that's through that process and going through the labor court, we've arrived at a point in time where, as of today, that closed shop agreement is terminated, and we can now formally engage with AMCU, and we can then get to a point at the end of that process to determine the numbers and to be able to then conclusively say that out of the employees that we have on the A and B category, we've got X number that are going to be retained by NUM, and we've got X number that are moving over to AMCU. And then we operate from a place of certainty. But up until now, up until that point is arrived at, we are all at it's educated guesses as to how much supporters AMCU have, how much supporters NUM have, and I think that's been at the root cause of the unrest that started in October.
Yeah. And Dr. Harvey, in this particular case, I guess we're looking at Gold One's operations and also the 2 incidents that have taken place. But the Bakubong Platinum Mine as well, and here we're speaking about the NUM members now also staging a sit-in. And I wonder what risk is there, though, because it started in October with Gold One Mine, and now we saw what happened at Bakubong Mine and again at Gold One Mine. The frustration that workers are raising, and as Ziad has said, it seems as though that workers believe that this is the best way to quickly get a response out of management.
Yeah, but they ill-advised. You know, I'll tell you what is the most striking thing. As I'm listening to you people, something struck me. Where is Joseph Matunjwa? Where is the senior officials of AMCU? Why is it that it's been allowed, that the rank and file, that miners have been allowed to do what they've done? It's absolutely unprecedented and it's crazy. How did this thing happen? How did we come to this stage? What has the AMCU leadership done? I mean, there are shelf stewards, there's officials, office bearers. Why have AMCU? It appears that most of those miners are AMCU people.
Yeah.
Why?
But to AMCU's defense, Dr. Harvey, AMCU is not recognized at the mine, and they've made this clear before. But they've argued that even though that they have workers who want to become members of AMCU, unfortunately right now they are not members of AMCU.
Yes, but I mean the sentiments, it appears that most of those people who've held miners hostage underground were AMCU sympathizing miners, from what I gather. And in fact, that the action was driven by their belief that management had refused to recognize the union and that, you know, people want to move over to AMCU and leave NUM. The point is this, however, why is it that the media is not even saying much about what, if you say that AMCU is not recognized, okay, you're saying that that's the reason why the silence of the AMCU leadership?
Well, we've had them on the show, actually, and we dealt with that particular question with them.
And this is what they said.
With Joseph Matunjwa. We had him on the show, yeah.
Yeah, but is that what he said?
And that is exactly what he said, and I countered that to argue that, but you have people who want to become members of the union.
Yeah, it's a very unfortunate and confusing situation, really, because you'd want to expect the intervention of senior union officials to address, and it still doesn't make sense to me. That I'm sure they have some leverage, some way of impacting, you know, on the situation and, calling for a review of the tactics and the hostage-taking and violence. And it seems that there's very little effect, on the miners.
Yeah, but what about the NUM? Because they're exploring the same tactic.
Yes, well, this is the problem, and I'm telling you, whether it's NUM or any other union, if you have a repetition of that and it becomes a pattern, you're going to have very serious problems. The reason why you have labor laws and processes and procedures is to follow them. If you don't and you do what has happened at that Gold One mine, you're asking for very serious trouble, you know. And what's going to happen now is really, I think it might even set back the struggle, for AMCU recognition. What has been allowed to happen really is leaving a very bitter legacy, I think, that they're going to inherit in the first few weeks of 2024,
Okay. And Frans Baleni, your take on what I've just raised now, especially with the Bakubong Platinum Mine as well, where here we speak about NUM members who staged this particular sit-in as well, is what Ziad was saying, that the workers believe that this is the best way to trigger a response from management.
And as I said, Aldrin, once you operate outside the house rules, it is a challenge. And I don't know the reasons why they opted the sit-in instead of engaging. I must just also add that companies must also be cautious. My understanding, this act is as a result of a retrenchment threat. Now, we know that commodity prices fluctuate. We know that there's a point where they are quite high and they are low. Another point where they are making huge profit. They have to make plans for the period when the commodity price is down. Not long ago, we were told that PGM and manganese prices are down. They have picked up. They have made a comeback. So on the other hand, there's a threat of retrenchment, and yet these commodities have made a comeback. So it's something which employers must be very careful in dealing with in terms of job losses.
Let's, as we conclude the conversation, deal with the aspect around safety and what should happen going forward. We'll start off with you, Frans Baleni.
I think safety is very, very important. And I would say to trade unions and employers involved, firstly, I don't believe in closed shop. We should believe in freedom of association and make sure that safety cannot be compromised, especially underground.
Thank you so much. Dr. Harvey?
No, of paramount safety, especially in underground, is of paramount importance, and it's a major setback, at the level of safety. And I concur with Baleni. I mean, you have to have a principled rejection of, not to close shops are very serious problems. Now today more than ever before. So I concur with him.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harvey. Ziad, do you think that that's something that your company would actually look into, whether to do away with the closed shop agreements?
I think we will never get into a closed shop agreement again. I think we're quite clear that will not happen at Gold One again. This happened in 2012, and through this experience, never again. But I concur with the panelists. Safety is paramount. And unfortunately, the safety of miners underground at our mine over the past week was put in jeopardy. And so, again, we need to take measures going forward to ensure that that doesn't happen again, and that people who come to work and plan to do a day's work are put in an environment where they don't have to fear for their safety.
And just quickly, Ziad, from your end, as far as you're concerned, the operations of Gold One Mine, there's no intention to actually pull out of the industry.
No. Look, I think we've had a very poor November, and we're going to have an equally poor December. We hope that we will have a turnaround strategy come the new year, and once we've gotten to a point where we have a roadmap to establishing labor peace. The intention of our shareholders is very much to continue with operations. Continue with operations with the same number of staff members, or is there a possibility of retrenchment? We've not considered that as an option as yet. The financial position has been poor, but there's been no talk around retrenchments. We'll do a review again of the financial position in the new year and make a call, but there's certainly been no talk around retrenchments at the moment. Thank you so much for your time. Ziad Hassan, Head of Legal at Gold One Mine, Frans Baleni, former General Secretary of the National Union of Mine Workers, and also Dr. Ibrahim Harvey, a political writer and commentator, and also former COSATU unionist. 0614-104-107, your ex at Aldrin Sampear, and we're also taking your calls on 086-000-20321, and you can also drop me a comment on Facebook as well as YouTube. We're also streaming live on those platforms.
In the headlines, some economic analysts say the recent Stats South Africa figure showing a decline in the inflation rate and the bank's high rate of credit application rejections are a reflection of an economy that is in crisis. The mother of a late 15-year-old teenager has filed a multi-million rand civil suit against two farm workers. The two caught the boy allegedly stealing heads of sunflowers in Colini in the northwest. And European Union leaders are meeting in Belgium for a summit reportedly dominated by divisions between Hungary and the rest of the bloc over Ukraine. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Welcome to it. Let's go live now to the Proteas taking on India in the third T20 cricket match happening at Wanderers in Johannesburg. The match began at 5 p.m. The Proteas will be looking to seal the series after their thrilling 5-wicket win in the second match at St. George's Park, which gave them a 1-0 lead. India will look to end the first leg of the multi-format Freedom Series with a win. The first match of the series was washed out, and that was in Durban. And currently, after the power play, India on 62 for the loss of 2 wickets, and plenty of action with Keshav Maharaj taking those crucial wickets. From there, let's go to the national team in soccer. Bafana, Coach Hugo Bruges calling up an entire starting 11 of Mamelodi Sundowns and 10 Orlando Pirates players in his squad. And this is for next year's Africa Cup of Nations taking place in Cote d'Ivoire. And on Thursday, the Belgian mentor announced a 50-man prelim squad that will be trimmed to 23 players in the beginning of the new year, shortly before departure to the West African country. Now, as confirmed, there'll be plenty to look forward to with Bafana Bafana in action. Hugo Bruges needing this time with the boys to refine, looking ahead to the wonderful news that will be ahead of AFCON next year. Now, as confirmed earlier in the year, tomorrow, the 15th of December, will be a public holiday in South Africa in honor of the Springboks successfully defending their Rugby World Cup title. President Cyril Ramaphosa first announced the public holiday during a nationwide address, and that was on the 30th of October, saying he had made the decision in celebration of the Springboks' momentous achievement. Ramaphosa added that government wanted the day to be a day of hope, a day of celebration and unity of sportsmen and women who've shown us what is possible. And as a reminder, the Boks claimed their 4th Rugby World Cup in France after defeating New Zealand 12-11, and that was the final that took place in Paris. More rugby now. Andy Farrell has signed a 2-year contract extension to keep him as Ireland head coach until the end of the 2027 Rugby World Cup. The former England dual-code international has won a Six Nations Grand Slam and a Triple Crown since succeeding Joe Schmidt, and that was in 2019, as well as overseeing a Test Series victory in New Zealand. Farrell also took the side to the top of the world rankings, although the recent World Cup in France ended with Ireland again failing to make the last 4 of the showpiece event, following a quarterfinal loss to the All Blacks. And that's a wrap of your sport on Beyond the Headlines. Look out for more sport on Top Sport with Michael Abramson coming up between 7 and 8 right here on SAFM. I'm Zai Khan.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, still a heavy queue that you need to know about if you're driving into Pretoria. Trying to avoid this one. The N14, top of the Ben Skuman, heavy backlogs from Euphius Road going up in towards the sort of R101 join point there. Durban is a busy region this afternoon. It all happened with an earlier truck fire on the N3 going southbound. I beg your pardon, the N2 going south at Spaghetti Junction. That traffic stays heavy from back beyond Queen Dundee Drive. A breakdown up at Gateway, so if you're heading north from Queen Dundee Drive, that is all jammed. Big overflows onto the M4 from Slunga through to Blue Lagoon both ways. A lot of pressure there. The N3 into Spaghetti Junction to join the N2 North. That's heavy. A lot of traffic coming into Durban as well with the queue through the Marion Hill Plaza area. And if you're driving out of Pietermaritzburg up to Howick and Hilton, there's a big queue. There's a breakdown and some roadworks at the top of Town Hill area. Cape Town, N1 inbound slow through from Justenburg into Brackenfell. A crash and the broken down truck is the obstruction there. And the city centre stays busy. That side of Cape Town around Greenpoint, Bait and Truckton, Helen Suzman, High Level Road, all very slow going. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And it is time for a MoneyWeb market update with Jimmy Moya. Hi, Jimmy. Good evening. Welcome to the show. So you're speaking to the Eskom CFO today, telling us about the H1 profits.
Good evening, Aldrin. Good evening to the listeners. We're speaking to the interim CEO, I believe, technically speaking. He will, once all the changes happen, there's so many changes, you know, you never really know who's CEO, who isn't. But we've got a new CEO, which means the acting CEO, Caleb Kassam, will then revert back to his CFO position next year once Dan Marokane steps into that role. But for now, Martin Base has been acting in the CFO's position. So we're going to be speaking to him in that capacity as current acting CFO on those H1 results. And we're definitely going to look at some of those numbers. There's a lot of things that would not be pleasant to look at, but we have to look at them regardless. I mean, things like the fact that we've had 183 of the last 183 days as load shedding days in the 6 months that we are looking at. So 100% record of load shedding there, not necessarily something we want to be proud of. We're going to look at that and some of the other numbers and performance metrics. Diesel going over budget at this stage, sitting at around 18 billion rand. So we're going to ask a couple of questions there and see if we get some answers from that. We're also going to be taking a look at some other stories and looking at the movements throughout the day. We're getting a sense from the Bank of America around their expectations on the emerging markets going into 2024. So yesterday I spoke to Prescient, which is a local asset manager, around their outlook for 2024. And now we're looking at the global expectations for emerging markets, and South Africa is in focus there as well. So we're going to look at all emerging markets and just generally what's happening with South Africa and what our prospects look like according to the global community. And then we're going to speak to the Mandela Bay Development Agency, the trip I came back from earlier this week. We're just going to catch up on that conversation and see how that's going and what their plans are there for those that missed that live webinar that we did with them from PE earlier in the week. And then we're also going to be looking at because it is Thursday, we've got our SME feature, and we're sticking with that theme of things you can gift others and gift yourself. And we're looking at an interesting company called Kopsa Liqueurs. They make a range of liqueurs, artisanal brandies and artisanal gins. And we're just going to look at what that business looks like and where you can get yourself some of the goodies that they have on a sale. But before we get to that, the markets have absolutely been a blast following what Fed Chair Jay Powell said yesterday about the potential that we could potentially see 3 interest rate cuts from the US next year, and markets have absolutely loved that. The rand has eaten that up. The local resources have shot through the roof. It's been a really, really good day. And Henko Krier has been keeping an eye on the markets for us throughout the day for that. Henko, good afternoon. Thanks, as always, for keeping an eye on the markets. It looks as though when the Fed Chair speaks, the markets listen.
Yes, Jimmy. Hi to you and good evening to all the listeners. Jimmy, like you said, the markets just devoured all of that great news and data that came out of the US, but also that great data points and news that came out of or locally today here by us. If you have a look at what's going on in the US markets at this stage, trading about 0.5% stronger. European stocks also in the green, with the FTSE 100 gaining 1.5% today, and the CAC 40 finishing 0.6% stronger. And then one of the best days I've seen in markets, on local markets, in a really long time, Jimmy. The all-share index on the JSE today finishing 3.7% stronger and closing at a level of 75,290 points. The financial index 4% up. The industrial index finishing 1.6% stronger. And then wait for it, the resources index finishing 7.7%. That's almost 8% stronger at the end of the day. And here's why. If we have a look at why the financial index jumped by 4% today, we see First Rand, one of the largest companies, one of the big 10, top 10 on the JSE, finishing 6% stronger at the end of the day. Then there's Anglo coming back with vengeance and finishing 6% stronger. Standard Bank 4% up, Glencore 3% up, British American Tobacco, Richmond and BHP, those 3 each finishing the day 2% stronger. The only one out of these top 10 companies on the JSE, and that's measured according to their market capitalization, is AB InBev, that finished 2% weaker. But your platinum and your gold mine shares did terrific today. You'll find that Goldfields finished 15% stronger. There's Amplats 14% up, Implats 13% stronger at the end of the day. Sibanye Stillwater and Harmony, those 2 11.5% up. And then Anglo Gold and Northern, those 2 finishing 10% better at the end of the day. You don't see that every day. On the negative side of things, they can't all be winners. You'll find other smaller companies like Italtal, WBHO and AECI finishing 2% down, and Outsurance and Reunert finishing the day 1% weaker. On the commodities market, the price of gold currently well above $2,000 again. For the first time in a couple of days, trading at $2,040 an ounce. Silver is sitting at $24 on the dot. Platinum is trading at $960 and palladium at $1,070. Palladium now again well above $1,000 for the first time in a really long time. The price of Brent crude trading at $76.50 a barrel. Like you said, Jimmy, the rand really doing very well today. Now trading at 18 rand 40 to the dollar, 23 rand 45 to the pound, 20 rand and 20 cents to the euro, and 12 rand 30 to the Australian dollar. A Bitcoin will cost you $42,500, and that's more or less 806,000 rand. Jimmy, can't wait for the market update at 6 o'clock to hear you and the market commentator unpack what's been happening on this terrific day on the financial markets.
Thanks for that update, Henko. I'm going to be speaking to Chantal Marx about this and other stories just after 6. We've definitely been keeping an eye on some of these movements, and the resources count is surprising to the upside. As you mentioned, Henko, they're almost a full 8%. I don't think we've seen that at all this entire year. Or even over the last couple of years, but exceptional performance from the markets, definitely showing that once the concerns around the U.S. economy subside, we're probably going to have a really good 2024. Hopefully this continues and this momentum continues into the new year. But we'll keep an eye on that and we'll dig into that just after 6 p.m. For now, Aldrin, we're going to cross back to you and the team, and we'll be just around the corner.
Thank you so much. That is Jimmy Moya. He's back again just after 6 o'clock. We're taking your calls on 086 000 2032, your voice notes on 0614 104 107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
SAFM is sharing the festive spirit by giving away 5,000 Rand to 10 lucky winners. To enter, SMS SAFM Festive, followed by your name and what the festive season means to you to 41391. And you could win. Tune in to SAFM throughout December and we could be calling you. SMSs are charged at R1.50. Free SMSs, free minutes and SMS bundles do not apply. Terms and conditions apply. Visit safm.co.za for more information. You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
Let's take your voice notes on 0614 104 107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. This is Agimatebula. Your Tabo have said it all. Ye have said it all. Sometimes we don't have to say, when someone needed help, we were not there. You know, people must help themselves when time still allows them to do whatever. You know, music industry is something that it gives you more money at the certain times and all that. I think Tabo have said it all. This is Agimatebula, Aldrin.
Yeah, and I agree with that perception, and I know for some people it's very difficult to hear it. But sometimes, guys, we need to have a conversation about our financial discipline amongst us as friends as well, and have the conversation amongst friends as well to say that, but the way that you're going about spending your money is not, or you might find yourself in a situation where you lose all of that money and you're unable to take care of yourself, right? Because unfortunately for most of us, the majority of us, we don't come from households where it was the norm that there's money around and you're taught from a very early age how to use money and how to budget properly, because these things I think you need to teach people from a very young age so that once they get into adulthood and they start dealing with big money as well, they're able to handle the money and they're able to budget properly for the things that they require and for their needs. Sometimes you do get it wrong. But we need to start having these conversations. And we know that speaking about finances sometimes is a very sensitive thing. But who's going to tell your friend that, hey, mngani, manje soyayilahla manje. Mngani, you are spending too much on this. I've realized this is what I've noticed about how you spend your money. And sure, you may get the response that says that, but this is my money. But even if you do get that response, that doesn't mean that you must remain silent. Perhaps maybe it is the conversation that you're going to have with that person that's going to change their outlook and how they understand how to use their money properly. (0614-104-107), and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Our studio line is 086 000 2032. Remember that you can also drop us a comment on Facebook, where we are also streaming live, and you can also go on to you can also go on to YouTube as well. Patricia, thank you so much. Patricia on our Facebook page saying that I'm in awe of how well-read and knowledgeable the SAFM presenters are. Well done. Thank you so much for that. And someone was telling me that they are actually, where is it now? Khotso, who says, "Good afternoon, Aldrin. I'm starting to enjoy Facebook version of your show, listening from Bethlehem. Thank you so much, Khotso. Let's get more people to listen in via YouTube as well as Facebook. And remember that you can also make your comments there as well. And this one here from Mtandeni, who says, "Good afternoon, Aldrin. We'll miss the 3 weeks. This is bad. I am here until the end of next week, but don't despair. We shall reconnect again. And Mtandeni, do enjoy your break as well. So once we get to reconnect, we'll have fun again and speak about current affairs and politics." Moses on our YouTube page says that if he does that, this is now in relation to Dr. Mavuso Msimanga, if he does that, Msimanga will lose his dignity. That is rescinding his resignation. Well, as you heard earlier on, there is confirmation that indeed he has now withdrawn his resignation letter. That is Dr. Mavuso Msimanga. But he doesn't return, though, as the deputy president of the ANC Youth League, of the ANC Veterans League.
Good afternoon. Mavuso Msimanga returning to the ANC. What a joke. What a joke. Is he really a man of integrity? Because he's going back to the corruption that he's complaining about in his resignation letter. What is that all about? Or, like Fakile says, he was bribed by the new party. Now the question should be turned around. Did they pay him to come back? Or what did they promise him? Teresa, Cape Town.
Get your payments done with the utmost security and convenience when you purchase a TV license now. With our new secure payment systems with a one-time PIN, OTP feature, and the choice of receiving your OTP via SMS or email, you can ensure prompt and secure payments. The additional use of capture will protect you against spam and automated data attractions. With TV licenses, you can enjoy watching all your favorite shows or movies that matter to you. Get yours today. Visit www.tvlic.co.za.
Chelsea FC is not impressed with their current position. They want to ensure Sheffield United grabs nothing at Stamford Bridge.
Raheem Sterling, the big nipper, Chelsea 11.
Meanwhile, Sheffield United are also not comfortable in the danger zone.
McBurney's header, and it drops into the far corner of the net.
Who will enjoy the festive season with victory? The Blues or the Blades? This is the Premier League. Catch the exhilarating clash between Chelsea FC and Sheffield United FC on Saturday, 16 December at 4 p.m. live on S3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Don't miss out on the SAFM Playwriting Competition. To enter, visit safm.co.za. From the menu icon, select Competitions. Click on the SAFM Drama Playwriting Competition. Read the T's and C's of the competition. Check out the competition's Q&A. Fill in the entry form by clicking the link provided. Email your script to drama@safm.co.za. For further information, email drama@safm.co.za. Entries close on the 22nd of January 2024. SAFM, leading the conversation. Hashtag SAFMBTH.
So, reminder, any moment from now, we'll be giving away 5,000 Rand. And this is part of our SAFM Festive Season competition. So, if you've SMS the word SAFM Festive followed by your name to 41391, we could be calling you any moment from now. And SAFM is giving away 5,000 Rand to 10 lucky listeners. The competition actually started yesterday on the 13th of December and will continue up until the 30th of December. All you have to do is SMS SAFM Festive followed by your name to 41391 and we could be calling you. So one lucky listener will be walking away with 5,000 Rand this evening. Let's go to Mazuza in the meantime, joining us from Pretoria. Good evening.
Good afternoon, Mr.
Aldrin. I'm a full-time listener of your program.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Usually, when you close your program, you close by saying, love one another.
Yes.
So I want you to say something about Mavuso and Mbalula. People do not appreciate good things. What they've done is a wonderful thing to the people who fear God, because we always pray and say, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive them that trespass against us. So what Mbalula has done and what Mavuso has done, it's one of the greatest things that people should appreciate. It's a good thing that this is what God wants his people. When you fight, in the end, you become in peace to one another. Thank you. That's what I wanted you to remark. You always close by saying, love one another. God bless you. That's what I'm saying to you.
Thank you so much, Mazuza there from Pretoria. 0614-104-107 and X at Aldrin Sampear.
Good afternoon, Andrew. No, the ANC, they need to correct themselves. So if now Mavuso Msimang is coming back after feeling Mbalula have launched what you call attacks on him, so they need to sit down and to be honest among themselves, because as long as they are not open amongst themselves, they will keep on fighting. Even if you can come another president. So the route.
Aldrin, as a senior member in ANC on my own right in the branch, I am very much happy to see that our veteran is back. And I also had this Mr. Msimang with highest regard. And I was so worried when we lost him through the slowness and the tardiness of how we implement these resolutions. People who have been tainted, let's put it like that, in all these things, let them go to the Integrity Commission to clear their names. Let us not have them in the list so that we keep on telling people that, no, later on. I do agree and accept and hope that they will implement it to the T, whatever comes out from those veterans. They've walked the walk. His father walked the walk better than us. Superbs of Cape Town. And Adeha.
#SAFMBTH.
Okay, it's 5 minutes now before 6 o'clock. Before we say dotsins, we're about to give away 5,000 Rand in cash to one lucky listener. Remember that this competition is running from now up until the 30th of December. We're giving away 5,000 Rand to 10 lucky listeners. All you have to do is SMS the word SAFM Festive to 41391. That's SAFM Festive to 41391, and followed by your name, and we could be calling you. So we're trying to dial that number now of that lucky listener who would be walking away with the 5,000 Rand, which could come in handy. The SMSs are charged at a premium rate of R1.50 per SMS. 3 minutes and SMS bundles do not apply. T's and C's apply. So also remember that it is SAFM Festive with your name to 41391. Not to our WhatsApp line. I see that there's somebody here who has already sent to the WhatsApp line. Do not send to the WhatsApp line. You need to send to 41391. I hope the person on the other end answers the phone. Otherwise, we need to move on. Okay, we have to move on. We'll go to another person. So make sure that you have your phone close by. If you have SMS SAFM Festive to 41391. So let's try once again. And if we don't get this person, it's going to guess roll over, and we'll see who would be walking away with the 5,000 Rand on a different show. So once again, SAFM Festive followed by your name to 41391. That's SAFM Festive followed by your name to 41391. The competition is running until the 30th of December 2023, and we're giving away 5,000 Rand in cash to 10 lucky listeners. Okay, it seems like this one is not going through. Hello?
You have reached...
Okay, unfortunately not. What's the person's name? Do we have a surname? Unfortunately, we don't have a surname. So if your name is Patrick and you entered the competition, you just lost out on 5,000 Rand cash. I guess it is what it is. We've come to the end of our voyage. Thank you so much for choosing Flight SAFM BTH 326 with me, Aldrin Sampear. Today we are playing out with a song by Zolani. It is a cover of Loliwe by Zahara. So Zolani is from Freshly Ground. I saw the video earlier on in the morning, and I just loved it. I just loved her rendition of Loliwe. And our parting shot is from Byron Pulsifer, who once said, "I've never known a person who was successful that didn't at first establish a mindset of success. You can't be that which you can't believe." And our credits this evening are read by Mapetu.
Good afternoon to SAFM listeners. As we have come to the end of our show today, I would like to give special thanks to our captain, Mr. Aldrin Sampear, and to the lady on the sports desk, Zai Khan, together with our best production team, Temba, Kanya, Vusani, Phineas, and Lundi. As Aldrin used to say, let's love each other and lead with compassion. Let's meet again tomorrow. This is Mapedu, Jeffrey Mantlaha in Maviti A. Thank you.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
And like Mapetu said, remember to love each other and lead with compassion. Totsins, enjoy the rest of your evening.